Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
This one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies. What you know about Jacob Zeno?
Nothing.
Yeah. I've seen him play. I remember him playing for Baylor a little bit. Didn't watch him at UAB. I think he was Baylor for just a cup of coffee. But let's talk a little bit about it. The crew in the back gave us some information on him. Redshirt senior. This is entering his 7th college football season.
7th.
I believe it's his 7th college football season.
Dr. Zeno.
Dr. Zeno is 6'4", 210.
Okay.
Okay. He's from San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
Previous schools, he was at UAB 2022 through 2024. He was at Baylor 2019 through 21.
Huh.
So, yeah, this would be his 7th year. 69% percentage completion rate. He's thrown for just shy of 5,000 yards, 32 touchdowns, 18 interceptions, 360 yards rushing, and 6 touchdowns rushing.
Okay.
Not bad numbers.
Not bad at all.
2023 season, he was hurt this last year. I believe it was his non-throwing shoulder that was hurt. This so in 23, 73.6% completion percentage. Threw for over 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions.
Okay, got to cut down that 9 interceptions, but be interesting to know who they were against. You know, if they were playing an SEC team, for instance, and you're behind your pass protection is somewhat suspect. You know, and you had a lot in that game. You know, but the numbers sound pretty. The numbers overall sound really good.
I think you'll laugh at this one. In the 2019 Big 12 championship, what quarterback do you think he played against?
Let's see. In the
2019.
Was that? I'm trying.
Oklahoma
State?
Oklahoma.
God,
Jalen Hurts. Holy smokes, he's been playing college football a long time. Because I feel like Jalen Hurts has been with the Eagles since I was a child.
Wow.
Even though I covered him as a grown man.
It is crazy what's happened because of COVID. And you get that free year, and then you get the 4 games and still red shirt, and then you get, I guess, an injury forgiven season, you know, and all these things. Yeah,
he was sacked 28 times in 23, bottom half of the country. That's a lot.
Is that also the year he had 9 interceptions?
Yes.
Okay, see, that's starting to make sense.
His time to throw, 2.72, which is 8th in the AAC.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of protection. Average depth of target. Matthew Dawson, he's so good at finding. Yeah, I know it.
He's just an engineer.
He's a genius.
He works here. He works in sports. You know, like
that's the chink in the armor.
Yeah. I don't know if we can say that. Average depth of target, 5.5 yards.
So he's got to get rid of the ball fast.
Likely due to scheme. This is what Matthew put on here. Number of scrambles, 37.
Okay.
Turnover-worthy play, 2.8%, 5th in the AAC, 44th in the country.
You know what?
You like him right now.
I do. It sounds like a good addition.
Yeah. Connor Wegman had the highest turnover-worthy play percentage in the SEC this year at 5.4, just to kind of give you a glimpse. Marcel Reed, a tad turnover-worthy play. Excuse me. His turnover-worthy play percentage was 3.8.
Turnover-worthy.
Yeah, that's what he.
That's a strange way to put it.
It's a stat. The turnover worthy. You're worthy of a turnover.
Yeah. Okay.
King, 2024 sideline. Yes, exactly what I said. Non-throwing shoulder. Only played 4 games this year. This is a stat show. Welcome to the stat show. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan. 69.5% completion percentage, 819 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5 picks, 97 rushing yards.
I understand when you have an opportunity to go make millions of dollars, you have to take it. I wish I could make millions of dollars. And if I could, I'd take that opportunity.
Yep.
That said, everybody I know, and I'm talking as adults, I mean, 100%, yes, hey, what's the best time of your life? Oh, man, when I was in college.
Yeah.
And I always wonder, why are some guys so quick to want to leave? So, if you got a chance to stay in college another year, Zeno. Or, Hayden Schott or whoever, why don't you take it?
I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong here. I usually know this stuff. Somebody in the back will tell me. I think one of the bad guys in the Avengers is a guy named something Zeno.
Zeno?
I think it is a Dr. Zeno.
Okay.
All right. Coaches he played for. Would you like to know some of the coaches
Cooper
he's
says Zemo.
Zemo. Sorry. Zemo, Zeno. Same thing.
Yeah.
Coaches he's played for.
Okay.
Matt Rule.
All right. Good coach. Good coach.
At Baylor. Marcus Satterfield.
Good coach.
Joey McGuire.
Allegedly a good coach.
Trent Dilfer. Good speaker.
I think he's a good coach. Actually.
Super Bowl champion, Trent Dilfer.
Yes, he is.
So, like when I saw his name initially, I remember seeing him play at Baylor. I was like, oh, that's an interesting name. I hadn't thought about him in years. And the more I read about him, I'm like, he's not coming in to beat out Marcel Reed, but he could teach Marcel Reed a couple things. And you know what? He's going to compete for that spot because I don't think when you're 8-4, any position should be safe.
That's true, but I would think that he probably knows he's coming in to spend the last season at Texas A&M, more likely than not to be the backup.
Every year since 2020, for different reasons, you've had 2 quarterbacks play significant amount of football, and sometimes 3. Oh, and sometimes 4.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Zeno, we expect to see you on the field a little bit next year.
Let's hope not under those circumstances.
In mop-up duty is what I hope.
Yeah. I don't think that's the stat you want to
come to A&M where you can play.
Where you're going to get hurt. And I don't know that that's the selling point.
That would be a pretty good commercial.
Maybe if I was trying to recruit in Kansas, hey, you sure you want to go there? Because
you may get hurt.
You're probably going to get hurt.
Or you'll get benched. No, I believe in this staff, by the way. We're just kidding about the last few years. But I'm a little more intrigued about it. Because look, we said it 2 weeks ago. It's going to take a special type of quarterback to bring in here based on, we got our starter, right? We feel very comfortable with Marcel Reed. I'm speaking for the coaching staff right now. They feel very comfortable with Marcel Reed. So if you're going to come here, it's a Jalen Henderson type situation. You might play. We hope you can teach these quarterbacks a thing or two about how to be a college football quarterback. And, and you may play.
Yeah, you may start. If you're just so much better and you just blow us away, yeah, you'll start. If you're the absolute best guy, you're going to start. And that's even the best case scenario because if he just came in and blew everybody away and became the starter, it'd only be for 1 year.
Right.
And then, then it would be I'm not saying this will happen, but it'd be a year for Marcel to improve.
Sure.
But Marcel's the quarterback.
And I do believe this. I think Colin Klein, with an off season to gear his offense around Marcel's skills as the QB1, right? Because he went into it with, you knew you had Marcel, but it was Connor's team. And then there was a particular skill set. But now he can build an offense around what Marcel does.
Well, let's certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Because I have to admit, I was not impressed with a lot of things on the offense. I mean, it's second down. What are we going to do? Oh, I got it. Let's run inside because it's second down. That's what we do on second down.
What do we do on third down?
Well, usually have to throw because you didn't get anything on second down.
Hey, what do you do on fourth down? All right, let's not go there.
Yeah, we know you go 7 of 17.
It's funny. We had our managers meeting on Monday, and we were looking back at our sponsors thing that we had last week, and they're like, Nuño was a little salty after the Texas game when I spoke, because I was kind of grumpy.
I think we all were.
5 Texas A&M players named to the 2024 All-SEC football team.
Okay.
This first segment is all about list, OB. Let's go through this list, all right? First team defensive lineman, Nick Scorton.
Yep. Knew that was coming.
Second team running back, could have been first team in my opinion if he didn't get hurt.
I got Le'Veon Moss. Yeah, I think he was
Moss.
on his way.
And let me just give you
I don't have
Le'Veon's-
a big problem with the two guys they put on the first team, though.
Yeah, me neither. 764 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean,
He was
on
looking
his
for
way.
1,000 season.
Oh, yeah,
1,000
without
yard
a
season.
doubt.
Second team defensive back, Will Lee.
Sure. Why not?
Pick 6, 2 picks, 42 tackles, 10 pass deflections.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably make a case for him for first team, but I think as long as you get on the team, you're all
Yeah.
conference.
Third team offensive lineman, Trey Zune.
Yeah, Trey Zune. Well, I think it was might have been the conference offensive lineman of the week twice.
Yep.
Seems like every week he was A&M's offensive lineman of the week.
Third team defensive lineman, Shamar Stewart.
Okay.
So from this team, all right, let's kind of go through these guys for a minute. Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart are going to the NFL.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Moss is a TBD on his future. We hope he comes back.
We hope so.
Right.
I would suspect that he will.
I suspect it as well. Will Lee is coming back.
He's already coming back.
Trey Zune, I hope he comes back.
I hope he does. And I suspect that he will, but we can't take that for granted.
Right. So if you, from this list, are able to keep 1, 2, 3 guys
Mhm.
of your 5 that made it,
Yeah.
well, that's a great percentage.
Yes, it is. It is. And we knew Nick Scorton was a one-year player.
Yep.
We knew that coming in, so that's not a surprise. I think hopefully they'll retain even more.
Jed Fish, familiar with his game?
Jed Fish,
Yeah.
the coach up at Washington,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I like him.
Who was the offensive coordinator for UCLA when they rallied from 34 down?
Why you got to bring that
Because
up?
you asked me if I'm familiar with his
you
game.
were very familiar with his game.
More familiar than I'd like to be.
While I don't think it's reality, I like what he said about bowl games.
Okay.
I don't think it matters if you've won 6 and you're 6-6, or if you've won 9 and 9-3. If you have a chance to play in a bowl game, it should be a championship mentality, a championship opportunity. Our goal is to go into that bowl game and win. Our goal is to go into that bowl game, compete at the highest level, play absolute best, practice our hardest. This was when he was asked if bowl games matter. And he has a problem with people saying they don't matter, because people or his team played all of October, November to try to get bowl eligible to play in a big game. So it absolutely matters to them.
It should. Look, here's the first thing. Why don't you play football in the first place?
It's fun.
It's fun.
It's great.
It's fun. It's great. So and then you want to compete. So if you had a chance to play football for the fun, because it's fun, and then you're a competitor, so I want to play not just to play, but
Right.
to win, and I've got a chance to do it, and in front of all these people that have helped me get money and have supported me,
Yep.
for this university that's educated me, I don't understand why you walk out on that. But
Here's another thing I find interesting, because I'm excited about the Las Vegas Bowl for multiple reasons. Get to go on a road trip with the TexAgs crew, go to a cool town, watch football again. We get so excited, not as excited, but we do get excited for a New Mexico State game at Kyle Field right before, the season is really on the brink, right? Like we get excited about that before Auburn, before Texas. Why wouldn't we get excited about USC in Las Vegas? Right? Like, just because it's a month removed, is that the reason? Or because, oh man, we were so close to the playoffs, we're making the SEC championship game, I just can't stomach watching another game. I don't think we all think that way.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's because you wonder how invested the players are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, last year, once again, first of all, you're in a bowl game because you didn't get into the playoff.
Yeah.
And so that's a consolation prize in itself. And then guys are opting out. I mean, look at the Aggies last year. First of all, I was in Houston. And look, Aggies live in Houston for the most part. So that's so not as big a prize. And she said, you know what? I saw somebody from Baylor on Twitter suggesting that the Aggies were ducking Baylor.
Oh, I saw that.
I mean, Houston, Las Vegas. Only in Waco would they look at Houston and say, hey, man, that's where I want to be.
There's this social media. Again, social media is not a place. It's just a bunch of mean ideas.
For idiots. Okay. So anyway, you wanted to be in the playoff. You didn't make it, so it's constant. And then last year, how many players from A&M just decided they weren't going to play? So it's not always a true representation of the team you saw all year. And that's why it, very often, loses its luster. And there's too many bowl games.
Yeah, there's a bunch. All right, let's do this. Let's tell the people what show they're listening to. They probably have they think they're watching Gardening 101. This is not Gardening 101. This is TexAgs Live.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay, just making sure you knew.
I was going to say Gardening 101 because we've been talking about gardening all morning.
Yeah. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the
Maybe
Rollo.
it's Garnering 101.
Gardner, yeah. David Gardner's 101. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looked so good with Maroon U. Olin Buchanan, David Nuño in the Holistic Planning Cool Zone.
You can do. They'll help you with investments, taxes, estate, and
investinpro.com. Investinprosports.com. If you want to be a part of the conversation, call us. We'll answer it sometimes. 979-693-1150. We'll pick it up on the Boss Firearms hotline. Or you can text us as well, 979-693-1150. We go around the room. We say hi to the people. Behind the glass is the great Nick Savage. Nick, good morning.
Hey, good morning, y'all. How's it going?
What's up, buddy?
Well, Kevin Smith, I know we talked about, he got inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame, I believe yesterday.
In Vegas, right?
In Vegas, yep. So congrats to him, the former Texas A&M cornerback, excuse me.
Corner, yeah. Extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Great guy.
We had him on the show not too long ago. Maybe we need to get him back on and hear about the experience. But
and he,
congrats to him.
He participates on our boards often.
Yes, he does. Yeah, I mean, he's great Aggie, great person, stays invested in the programs, keeps up with everything, just the way it should be.
Yeah, I love Pup. What else do you have for us this morning, Nick?
That's pretty much it. Looking forward to a big basketball game this Saturday, big non-conference game. I'm excited to hear from Tap and Luke. We sure we want to have Luke on for a segment?
We had a meeting about
sure about that.
We do this segment once a week during basketball season called what's it called again?
Pounding the Rock.
Pounding the Rock. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name. And we once had Logan Lee on it with Tap. Last year we had, who do we have on it?
It was Hop.
Oh, Hop. Hop was on it. And, people keep leaving TexAgs. So we keep adding people, and we've run out of options. So Luke Evangelist is the next man
up. Is this the way to run Luke out of here? I like the way you think,
You
David.
like the way I operate? Yeah.
You know what's the best thing about Luke? His dad.
No, actually, I don't know.
His dad, Mark's a pretty cool guy.
I like Mark. Yeah,
Mark's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, you almost think Luke must be adopted.
They do kind of look alike, though. They look very much alike. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Caitlin Torn, the Torniac. Good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all?
Well, how are you?
I'm good.
That was a really good. That was like a.
Well, I'm done with finals, so yeah, really good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've passed them all and everything?
Passed them all.
All right.
Yes, sir. We got a text already on the YouTube from the barn that says, what do you guys think comes first, transfer quarterback, wide receiver, O-line, or D-line? I think you can make an argument for all of them.
Well, I think they already got the transfer quarterback.
Well, I think it means in terms of importance.
I think so.
Okay.
Wide receiver.
For A&M, yeah. Wide receivers. And then I would say, in my opinion, defensive line.
Okay.
Just because I don't know, the depth. I don't know if that'd be second most important because I like the guys that are here. But yeah, I think you got to replenish that defensive line.
Okay. Yeah. No issue.
What would be your second one?
Maybe that. I don't think you have too many good offensive linemen.
You can, yeah.
But definitely receivers top on the list. You've got to be able to stretch the field. You need a fast guy.
You got to have a fast guy. You're right, exactly right. All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back. I want to get into your column from yesterday about gambling man that is Mike Elko. We'll talk about that. Right now, though, prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs. I'm telling you guys, it's the great way to watch sports for these bowl games. You want to care about them a little bit more? Pick 2 to 6 player stat projections, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
If you were just like, look, I like watching college football, but I want to like it even more.
Yeah.
You do this on Prize Picks. You'll pick your 2 to 6 players, pick their stat projections, and bam, you'll win. They got a lot of cool stuff happening out during December. 1,000-time payouts. The game just changed with your lineups at Prize Picks. You now have the ability to win up to 1,000 times your money. The highest payout ever at Prize Picks available now. You have 5 and 6 power plays. You have Pixmas. December means it's a season of giving. We only know how to celebrate here at Prize Picks with Pixmas. Follow along this holiday season for free picks, discounts, free lineups, and, of course, more all month long. It's prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs, get $50 once you play in $5 lineups. It's Prize Picks.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Lucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Lucci sent you by.
We're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We're going to go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Caitlin, there's a message on the YouTube page from Frank, if you can because I think OB and I can chew on this for a second.
You know, there's not a lot of Franks out there anymore, but so it's good to hear from Frank. Let's be Frank.
He says, at David Nuño, don't you think that the transfer portal right before bowl games is dumb?
Yeah, but there's nothing you can really do about it.
Well, you could actually, as an NCAA, as an entity, whoever's in charge, as a governing body, say, you know what? we're going to schedule the transfer portal for this time.
Yeah, if you moved it to the spring, or actually at the end of the calendar school year, I think it would make the most sense. The reason they have to do it now is kids got to enroll at school and be ready to roll January, whatever. What's the first day of school for you? Like 10th, 15th, in that range?
13th.
13th. So there's to move across the state, to give coaches time to the chat. Could you move it to a 10-day window at the but still though, how long does the playoffs go until?
Till January 9th?
Yeah.
When does school open again?
January 13th-ish.
13th? You know, I got this crazy idea, this crazy notion that universities can and will massage their rules for athletes.
Yeah.
So seems to me that, you could massage your rules. If they're athletes, we can bump a few things back and whatnot.
No.
Special considerations.
I just don't know the best way to do it. I don't think there is a perfect plan. I think what you're saying probably makes the most sense. It's like, hey, this kid's probably going to enroll January 15th, a couple days late.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you got to talk to these coaches. You got to figure out so much logistics, where you're going to live. I mean, as an athlete, a lot of that would be taken care of for you. But I think there's just a lot of planning that has to happen before you can just get up and leave, Waco and move to Columbia, South Carolina.
Well, I'll also say this. Look, if you come up with a deal where a guy wants to go in the portal but wants to stay through the bowl game,
mm-hmm.
If I was a coach, again, depending on how the guy conducted himself, depending on how the guy's always been, the situation,
yep,
I might keep him around for that.
Matt Tackle says, my unsolicited opinion is that the portal should not open until after the playoff stuff is done. They want to preach safety for players, but then allow teams to play bowl games with a meeker roster, with meeker's rosters.
Well, I don't know if the size of the roster is making that big a deal for one game for the health of the players, right? You always have walk-ons. We're usually always talking about scholarship players. See, that's like last year. Didn't A&M start at least one walk-on in the secondary, maybe two, or played two? That's what happens. That's why when I say you don't get a true representation of the team you're following all year, because you may see a walk-on, playing significant, starting.
Yep.
Like the 12th man guy started last year at safety.
We have, Matt also adds, Tyler White, robbed of all SEC team. Absolutely disrespectful. I don't compare the other punters, but I think he was great.
I thought he was really good. I have to admit, though, since I wasn't voting, I didn't go over to see what other punters have done.
I didn't either. I did not either. Obi, let's get into... actually, you know what? Let's do it, because your topic, I think, will take more than 2 minutes before our next break. We'll go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Caitlin, I'm sure you got one or two more things to give us.
Yes, Bosis and Katie says, morning, guys. What are our chances to land both wide receivers, Hudson and KC?
I
think it would be very Concepcion from NC State.
Concepcion is a good one.
Yeah. Hudson, he just didn't play a lot this year.
Right.
So I'd like to see.
And then you have to ask yourself why.
Yeah. Freshman, they could have used him, though, for sure. But it might have not been the right fit for him. I don't think you're going to get both those guys, if I were to guess. I'd be very happy with one. Very, very happy. And I'd be ecstatic with both.
Yeah. And I think you're going to see them bring in at least two receivers. Now, they may not be the ones you want. Something tells me that Concepcion would be the number one target.
But I think he's going to Bama first before he comes here, and that worries me.
As it should.
Yeah.
But you gotta bring in some speed. You gotta have it, and hopefully speed that has produced.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, the Concepcion kid has produced more than the kid at Tech. Doesn't mean the kid at Tech doesn't have, or from Tech, who went to Tech, Hudson, doesn't mean he doesn't have a higher ceiling.
Right.
But, we were talking about the 2022 class before we went on air, and, what good does a high ceiling mean if you don't reach it?
Who reached it from that class? We've done this topic a couple times, but not many.
Not many. And it doesn't matter where they are.
Yeah, it's not just an A&M issue.
Yeah.
It's that class. And it just tells you, I think some of that has to do with those first few months in college, that first year in college, what path it sets you down, right? What kind of work ethic do you develop as a freshman? Who mentored you? Who took you under their wing and taught you how to be a college football player? When you come in with 20 to 30 dudes and you think you run the program and you are just 17, 18 years old getting to campus, I think that sets a bad precedent for an entire locker room.
But I'm also looking at the fact that, again, none of them have been spectacular anywhere else. They've been good. Some of them have been good, real good, but spectacular. Other places, not.
Evan was good. Walter was good.
Good.
Not spectacular.
Evans is like the number 3 receiver at Oregon. And if you can get that productivity out of your number 3 guy, I mean, that'd
be number 1 guy.
That makes you a national championship contender.
Yeah. But he was the number 1 wide receiver in that class.
Yes.
And from that class, what we were talking about it, Chris Marshall was number 3.
Was number 3.
Evan Stewart was number 1.
At receiver.
And Luther Burden was number 2.
Yeah, and who's the great one?
Luther Burden.
There you go. And
it ain't even close.
What did the other 2 have in common? They came here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you can miss that many times without there being a question of what was going on here that made them miss. That said, you got a whole different coaching staff to go out and get these guys in the portal and see how they produce.
And they hit last year. They hit. I know we would have liked to have seen Scorton get more sacks, of course. I would have loved a couple more interceptions.
Who was the best player from the best player for A&M from the portal?
Let me think for a moment. I mean, Scorton had the reputation. I don't know if the production. Will Lee was pretty.
Will Lee was probably my answer.
I think Will Lee might be the guy.
Yeah, Will Lee was the best portal acquisition, if you ask me. And Ramaj Reed Adams might be second.
He was up there. Yeah.
And quite frankly, Scorton may be third and maybe not.
Yeah.
Because you got to look at the whole season. Now, he was amazing.
Scooby Williams is on that list.
Scooby's on that list.
For sure, Scooby's on that list. Marcus Radford, by the way.
Radcliffe,
sorry, yeah. I'm merging him with other players. Yeah, I think for sure.
BJ Mays.
BJ Mays, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they
did well.
They did very well. Very like.
Let's hope they do well again.
There was a couple that didn't get the playing time that I had thought they might. But the ones who did, Cassius Howell, by the way, was great. He was really good. I don't know if great's the right word. He was really good.
I would like to see him work on his run defense in the offseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, let's hit a break here. We'll come back. Then we'll get into your column.
Okay, let's do that.
You know what? We could just eat some barbecue on the set and do it. Like, I know it probably wouldn't be aesthetically pleasing to Josh Olsey upstairs.
Couldn't do it today.
No, we could do it tomorrow, though.
Do it tomorrow.
We could be like, that could be a segment, 1775 and the boys, and we're just going to town.
Just eating barbecue.
Just eating barbecue, you know.
Is there a better situation than just sitting around talking football while you're eating with your friends, eating barbecue? From 1775?
No, that's the number one on the list. If you look at the list, that's what's on there.
It doesn't get any better than that. That might be what happens
Are
in
you
heaven.
a clean barbecue eater? Because it's hard sometimes to be clean. Like, I'm constant wipe.
Yeah, I mean, I like to keep the napkins nearby.
I like to have a lot of napkins. And then what happens is I have like it just becomes a lot of napkins that have been used on the side, and I got to get rid of them.
You know
Sometimes I throw them under the table.
You know what's clean when I go to 1775?
Everything.
I'm going to say when I get finished eating, what's clean is that
plate.
That plate that
you can eat on it again.
I'm going to say that the queso mac and cheese is in because I eat it all, and then I'm just going to lick it. I'm going to lick it out and finish it all up because it's so good. It's what they say about the coffee used to be good to the last drop.
Right.
Well, that queso mac and cheese is good to the last lap. Lapping it up.
I think we need to take a little part of that and put it on social media and not put any context. Just, I know, lick it up and just send that out.
I'm going to eat it up.
Kay Nagley or somebody in the back, please put that as a thing until we get in trouble. They're open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. Turns off at 10 a.m. Online ordering does. 8203 Raymond Stosser Parkway in College Station, 1775 TXBBQ.com. Some of the texts we get on here. Interesting. TexAgs Live. Somebody says hugs and stuff against me. I don't know. It's weird. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. But we do have one from a 210 area code.
Is that San Antonio, 210?
Adrian, yeah. Adrian says, I graduate tomorrow.
Oh, congratulations.
And best of luck to our volleyball team. Adrian, congratulations.
And congratulations to your parents. Get you off the payroll, Adrian.
He was raised by Alfred, his butler.
Alfred, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into it, OB. You had I enjoyed you always write a witty line or two that catches my attention.
Well, thank you.
And I mean that with a lot of respect. You make me laugh a lot. Elko should keep gambling in Vegas in ways that increase A&M's odds.
Yeah.
And you go into some of the unfortunate stats of fourth down conversions on the year. I'll read one of them for you. Elko has attempted 17 fourth down conversions. The Aggies have converted 7 times, 41%.
Yeah, and that's not good. Now, look, we got it in our minds that they're all on 4th and 1, and they're not. And some of them, were just unfortunate that you had to go for it, like late against Notre Dame.
Yep.
So, but for the most part, you look at the last 3 SEC games, and they were 2 of 8. So then it goes to 25%. Now, when they did convert on 4th downs, they led to touchdowns eventually. But we saw them. South Carolina, you go for it on 4th and 1 twice at your own 34. Neither time did you convert, and they both lead to points for South Carolina. There was one 4th and 6 that you didn't convert against Auburn. Unfortunately, it was the play after a dropped pass. But you did convert one against Auburn, and you went down and scored a touchdown. So you're 1-1 or 1-2 there, and then against Texas, you were 0 for 3. We remember one was at the 10, one was inside the 1 yard line, one was just before the half. It was 4th and 3. Marcel had to scramble. He only picked up 1 yard. So if you're going to go for it on 4th down, you obviously need to have a better success rate. My gist of my column is to say, when you have that kind of failure rate, let's call it what it is.
What was it in November? You wrote it. It was 2 of 8. The last
25%. Against those last 3 SEC teams. So that might make you say, okay, that might change your aggressiveness, make you want to rethink. And I said, no,
you don't want to change.
I like my coach being aggressive, but just let's be a little bit more creative, a little smart, not be as predictable. And I said, if you go to Vegas and gamble, and I don't mean
just the
double down. I don't mean going for the 6 the hard way, because as we know, 6 the hard way for A&M means scoring a touchdown and not 2 field goals.
Right.
So I said gamble, but gamble like Campbell, Dan Campbell. And you look at what he did in their last game, and he went for it 5 times on 4th down and made 4, and they won the game. And 2 of them were direct touchdowns on 4th down. They ran a play where they had Jahmyr Gibbs, a really fast running back, and he comes out as a receiver. On the 4th down, it's only 4th and go from the 2, and you move your team around to get matchups. Well, he's matched up on a linebacker, and he looks like he's going to go out, toward the pylon, but instead he cuts back inside. And he's so fast that it's a mismatch. He's wide open, touchdown. Right. Another one they throw to a guy that they don't throw to very often. I mean, they throw his Tim Patrick's receiver. Unless you follow the Lions closely, you probably don't know who Tim Patrick is. And then on the 4th down that led to their game-winning field goal, where they went for it just so they could milk the clock.
It almost didn't work.
What? No, I mean that worked. Yeah, because the quarterback slipped.
Right.
But if you look at that play, they're going to David Montgomery, not Jahmyr Gibbs. So they're going to put their best guy out there in a short yard situation, give him the ball. But he's running behind
the best offensive lineman.
Plus, they had a tight end lined up in a fullback, kind of H-back, who's going there. And then they bring another tight end in motion. And so they put everything right at that
spot.
And it was a big hole. So I'm just saying,
if you're going to do it right.
Do it right. Don't be so predictable. Because if it's 4th and 1, I think the last thing you should do, unless you identify and you say, you know what, I got Basantas there and this guy right across from him, we think he's weak, really weak. So that's where we're going to attack. But for the most part, don't be so predictable. Run a jet sweep to Bussy. Put Bussy or somebody else, Reuben Owens, back in the Wildcat. Do something different. Hell, put a big lineman back there and give it to him. Just be aggressive, gamble. Just do some things that's going to increase your odds a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think we all agree that the offensive line took a huge step forward this year?
Yeah, it
correct?
did, without a doubt.
Right, and it was pretty good.
It went from a D to a B. I'd give it a B.
Okay. But do you think it could have been a B plus if they would have converted a couple of those fourth downs?
I think it's an A.
Right?
I think that's the difference between an A and a B.
100%.
An A offensive line, when you have to have it, they line up and push. And that's what Elko has said all along. What this team needs to be, when we need a yard, we get a yard. And I think maybe a little bit better pass protection, but it was fine. But if this offensive line can go to where, look, it's 4th and 1, and you know what they want to do? They want to run inside, and they know it's coming.
Yep.
And you know what? It don't matter if they know what's coming. That's what a great offensive line. That's what an A offensive line.
I always use this example, and the youngers won't understand it, but you always knew that Stockton and Malone were going to do a pick and roll, and you couldn't stop it. You couldn't stop it. They ran it all day. The only thing that would stop it if they missed a shot.
I once saw a college lineman. I won't say who it is because I don't want to give him credit or his team credit. But they were in a game, and apparently the opponent was talking a lot of trash, and you saw him pointing. This offensive line was coming to the line pointing.
Yeah.
And he was asked after the game what he's pointing at. He says, oh, they were talking so much crap. I said, here's where we're running. We're running right here. And there's not a damn thing you're going to do to stop it. And you know what? They ran right there. And there wasn't a damn thing they could do to stop it.
Yeah.
Until you're to that place, let's get a little more creative on 4th down.
Yeah. Agree. All right. Got a text here. We'll get to that on the other side. Let's hit a break. Right now, we're talking Lewis Engineering, a machine shop located in Marshall, Texas. They want to become.
Marshall.
You like Marshall?
It's right there in East Texas.
They're family owned and operated, run by Doug Lewis, started in 1961 by his great-grandfather during the Vietnam War, making handheld signal flares that they still make to this day. Doug's parents went to Texas, but he's an Aggie. He's class of 2004. They manufacture mostly munitions for the U.S. Department of Defense, but are looking to take on any machining or metal fabrication project. They have helped the aerospace industry, automotive industry, and many other industries as well. What's that?
That's impressive.
That's pretty good stuff that they do. 40 employees, family owned and operated, 50,000 square foot facility, specializing in high volume machining and metal plating projects. So if you need 100 pieces, 100,000 pieces of high production, they're the people to call to get it done. It is Doug Lewis. Call him up, 903-938-6754. He'll give you a quote. LewisEngineeringCo.com. That is LewisEngineeringCo.com. Everyone, David Nuño here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season. There's
His
some.
boss was Stephen McGee.
What's that?
His boss was Stephen McGee.
Big Prince guy?
Yeah, actually, yes.
Purple Rain?
Yeah.
Apollonia?
I thought Apollonia was
Very good actress. I
thought she was quite talented.
Yeah, she was really good in that movie.
Yeah.
She was very good. Yeah.
But I liked Prince even before Purple Rain. I had
Even
the
before,
1999 album.
Yeah.
You got to understand, that's when he was really popular. I was like 20,
Right.
maybe even younger than that. So Little
Yeah,
Red Corvette.
I think that was, 1984 probably?
Yeah, my friend Cedric Golden, that's his all-time favorite.
He's amazing. And
was.
Tell me you watched Dave Chappelle do the skits about Prince.
I've seen him playing basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's very
Great.
funny.
Dave Chappelle's great.
He's a funny guy.
TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Pick your favorite text, Caitlin, because a couple of them are interesting.
Yeah, we got a text from Edward in Austin. He sent in a tweet from Michael Casagrande.
Big house.
Yeah, that says
Casagrande.
He's a good dude. He's
Is
a
he?
big guy, too.
says top scoring SEC offense versus conference teams last 5 years. 2020 was Alabama, 2021 Georgia, 2022 Tennessee, 2023 LSU, and 2024 was Texas A&M.
That's interesting to me.
The top scoring offense against who?
SEC teams. Top scoring SEC offense versus conference teams. So in the 8 conference games, A&M averaged the most points per game. Yeah, sometimes I just don't.
Well, they had a big game against Missouri, and they had a big game against LSU, and then Auburn, they went into overtime and scored a lot of points.
3 of the 5 games.
Got to
3 of the 8 games.
play Mississippi State and scored in the 30s in that game.
So are we wrong about the offense?
No.
I
No, I think, what's the Mark Twain? I like that. It sounds smart by quoting Mark Twain. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah.
So, statistics, what do they say about us? You could put your foot in a fire and put your foot in a bucket of ice water. Statistically, you should be, perfect.
Right.
Yeah. Really doesn't work out that way.
Look, I think the offense had its moments.
Had a
for
huge
sure.
game against Florida. Well, not huge, but a really good game against Florida.
I think also what happens is we remember the offense without Le'Veon Moss a little bit because it didn't look the same. And again, those short yardage situations, that's what was really lacking the last 3 SEC games.
Yeah, even though I thought, as expected, the offense wasn't as successful against Texas.
Yep. 0 touchdowns is very unsuccessful.
Had problems against South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So when they played good defensive teams, they struggled, but you should against good defensive teams. The better the defense you're playing, the less it makes sense. You're not going to move the ball. Arkansas, 21 points?
Yep.
And 1 touchdown was almost a gift from the defense.
Would you expect 30 points in the bowl game? I would.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know who's going to play. This is just I would expect A&M's offense to be able to move the ball on USC.
I would. But yeah, that's an interesting statistic. I would go back and see all those teams before A&M that you mentioned I wonder how good they were.
Yep.
What their final record was, probably better than A&M's. And then I would look at their receivers.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference too.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get another one, Caitlin.
Yes, Rudy from Dallas says, does E.J. Smith have any eligibility left? He was not listed on the list I saw.
I don't think he does.
I don't think he does. I can look that up quickly, but probably not quick enough.
Yeah, I don't think he does. Look, he did a nice job for what his role was. We didn't expect him to get that much of a look because
he played in 21. So he played too much in 21 and 22. He only had he should have a year left.
Okay.
He should have a year left because he only played 2 games in 22.
What I was going to say is I didn't expect him to have a big load this year, and he did a fine job for what my expectations were.
Yeah, he did what he was brought in to do.
Yeah. All right, Obie. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
When we come back on TexAgs Live, John Harris will join the program. Looking forward to talking to Johnny. After Johnny, what do we have? At 9:35. Caitlin, tell the people what we have.
At 9:35, we have Tom Schuberth in the studio.
And then at 10 o'clock, we've got a guy named Ryan, what?
Brauninger.
Yep. And then after that, we've got Pounding the Rock.
Yep.
That and more. It's TexAgs Live. We are back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. A week ago, I couldn't catch up with my buddy John Harris from the Houston Texans. He's their sideline reporter, and of course, footballtakeover.com. We had signing day, so we're catching up a week late. I'm sure he's got some thoughts on the A&M season and, of course, the college football playoffs. Johnny, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, David. Yeah, it was almost as if I couldn't even talk about signing day because I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's kind of what I took. I get a message like, "Hey, it's signing day." It's like, okay, you're not on the air. Like, oh, okay. I'm kidding. No, I don't follow the high school recruiting like I want to, but I still follow it. And just I pulled up the class a little while ago, knowing I was going to be on, and you know what hit me right away, David?
What's that?
Rashad Johnson Jr. Because I watched and covered Rashad Johnson.
Uh-huh.
So now you sit there and you watch Rashad Johnson Jr. and I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. So I But I'll tell you the one thing that kind of stands out to me about this class, just looking at it, David. First of all, I feel like it's a little bit more Texas national mix as opposed to being national Texas mix, if that makes sense. They were going out and they went and got Fidel Diggs out of New Jersey, amongst others. But I don't say they went back to roots, but just looking at this class, it feels like it's a lot more Texas based, which, obviously I'm going to be happy about. But then when they went out of state, they went to Florida, California, and they went to states that they know you can have success just throwing a dart and finding a few players. Like I said, Rashad Johnson Jr. I don't know how you end up pulling him out of the state of Florida. But anyways, point being, I feel like that focus on Texas again is going to end up paying off in the long run. Hate the fact they lost Longstreet from out of Centennial. I follow the California scene now a little bit more. I've been doing it for a while, just kind of following Centennial and Mater Dei and Bosco and Servite and just those big schools. And so kind of following them from afar. So I watched him play. I was really excited when he was with A&M, but obviously the pull of staying home to USC, I think, was probably a bit too much. So at that point, okay, let's not have a transfer portal situation. We just had the transfer portal situation before we even got there. So, you pick yourself up, you find quarterbacks from wherever you can, and hopefully Marcel Reed ends up being the guy going forward, and he can win you some games for the next 2-3 years, and you can build up that quarterback position without Longstreet, who'll go to USC. I
don't know if you've done much research on Brady Hart, the quarterback that they did get. Brady Hart was probably going to be the top 5 quarterback in next year's class. He reclassified because he was going to go to Michigan. He was going to be Michigan's guy until the whole Michigan fiasco with LSU, and then he had to rethink about what he had to do. So it kind of worked out in A&M's favor that when Longstreet decided to go USC and A&M was in kind of a panic mode, that whole situation with LSU and Michigan happened, and they got Brady Hart, who they are very excited about.
Now, I can tell you, and I haven't had a chance to see Brady play, but just in his bio, his dad played in the major leagues. But the first thing that stood out to me is I saw Cocoa High School, and I'm like, oh, Cocoa High School has had some dudes. Now, it's not a big school, but it's probably like 2A or 3A in Florida. But Cocoa has put out some serious talent over the last probably, 15 to 20 years. I had a buddy of mine who coached at New Smyrna. I worked for him. He was defense coordinator. I was outside linebackers coach. And so good friend of mine. So he coached at New Smyrna, but he had a lot of connections with people at Cocoa, and they have won championships for years, even at that level. So haven't had a chance to see him play, but just knowing the Cocoa High School lineage the way that I do, I got a feeling that he's got some grit, and I got a feeling he's going to be pretty tough. And he's probably a pretty good athlete, his dad being a former Major League Baseball player. So he's probably got a good mix of what you're looking for in a quarterback, and size wise as well. But I've said this a lot, when it pertains to recruiting, portal, NFL free agency, even sometimes in the draft. Like, you get so hell bent. Like, a great example of that is, 2 years ago, people were hell bent in Houston. It's got to be Bryce Young. It's got to be Bryce Young. It's got to be Bryce Young. They wouldn't even listen to me about, like, hey, this CJ Stroud character is pretty good, y'all. Like, he can sling it. No. We want Bryce Young. So you look at it now, and Bryce is playing better, and I'm very happy for him. The slings and arrows he took were just ridiculous. He's starting to get that Carolina franchise turned around, playing better. But CJ Stroud was the answer. And everybody's like, I knew it was that way all along. Sometimes things bounce a particular way. And I can tell you, when it turns to bounces and things like that, how we get CJ Stroud should be a 30 for 30 one day. Because all the Colts had to do was knock down a Hail Mary on 4th and 20 and then stop a 2-point conversion. And they couldn't. And because of that, they had to face CJ Stroud 2 times a year or more for the next how many ever years. So sometimes the breaks go for you, and Longstreet staying home at USC might end up being a break for A&M in that Maybe it keeps Marcel Reed in that position for a little longer, gives Brady Hart some time to develop, and then they can build up some depth at that quarterback position over the next few years and not have to worry about what a 5-star is. He going to go back to California? Oh my God, no, you don't have to worry about that.
Well, Johnny, I think it's interesting you say that because OB and I, and we've actually unfortunately talked about it a couple times over the last couple weeks, is that it's not all about the 5 stars. You need as many 5 stars to win in the SEC. You need 5 stars. You need them, right? Like that, and you need 4 stars. There's no doubt about that. But it becomes about the right ones, because when you go back and look at the 22 class and how many contributed, not just to A&M, to college football in general, the A&M top, the 22 class that had so many stars, you go down that list, and a lot of those dudes didn't pan out here and other places. And when they went to other places, they didn't become the star that we expected them to. So sometimes it takes the right mix. And also, I think that freshman year is so important in their growth, because if they go down a certain path, it can follow them wherever they go.
First of all, you're right, David, as far as there's no doubt you have to have talent. But getting talent to the university is just the first step in a long novel. Like, that's the first step. Like, yes, you got to have the talent, no doubt. But you have to have the staff that develops talent. And I felt like especially at the end of Jimbo's run, I felt like that talent wasn't developing for whatever reason. It just felt like they're just kind of stagnant. Like, even watching Walter Nolan, like watching Walter, like there'd be games I'd forget, like, oh yeah, Walter's playing. Oh yeah. Now he went to Ole Miss and he kind of did some of the same things, but he did have, I thought, brighter moments going to Ole Miss. Would he have those with A&M with this coaching staff? I think he would have, because I think a lot of this coaching staff, as far as a developmental type staff, because that's the thing. If you get 4 and 5 star recruits and you have a staff that develops them, they turn into NFL prospects. And that's what you need to have. It's the talent that gets developed. If you take 2 and 3 stars and you turn them into 4 and 5 star players at A&M, you get really good college players that have a chance to go to the NFL. But you're right when you say the 4 and 5 stars, but you got to develop them. You can't get those 4 and 5 stars and just go, they're good. They're good. No, you've got to develop them in a way like, okay, the ratings say you're a 4 or 5 star. We can see the ability. We see the length. We see the speed, the twitch, the suddenness. We see all of that. But now how do we develop that into a player that can go to the NFL? Because you look at these 12 teams that got into the playoff, not all of them. You look at them, you're like, okay, NFL talent. Oh, boy, wow. Oh, boy. It's all over the place. Even Indiana and SMU, I know people are going to have issues with that. Do Indiana and SMU have as much talent as Alabama per se? No, but Cignetti and Rhett Lashley have staffs that have taken the talent they have, developed them and made them better, and turned a number of players into future NFL picks. And that talent plays well together. So yeah, David, I think you hit right on it. It's the right kind of guys. I remember when Brian Kelly was up at Notre Dame, and our buddy Sean Pendergast, who had gone to Notre Dame, he used to talk about RKGs, right kind of guys. And it's the old adage of, the movie Miracle. I love that movie. And Herb Brooks says to his assistant coach, I don't want the best guys. I want the right guys. And this is the right team. And so, it becomes trickier at a place like A&M, because the thought is, you can go win a national championship because you're getting talent there. Now, can we develop it and then get it to play cohesively enough that we can win 11 games and then go to the playoff and win a playoff and really set it off at that point? But yeah, you have to get the 4 and 5 stars, David. But you know as well as I do that some of the recruiting services, and I love your man, Ryan Brauninger. That dude is working his butt off. I saw him it was the day after Thanksgiving. It was a Friday after Thanksgiving, and he's roaming the sidelines at NRG. I think guys are better at that now than they've ever been. They have more access. And so when they put a 4 or 5 star label on a guy now, I believe it more so than I used to. But I've been moving, and like over here in my closet, I've got like, I wish I could show you. I got like stacks of college football magazines. And I've got one it's a recruiting magazine. And I was like, man, on the cover is Keontae Ingram. And it's the class of 2018, 2019, 2020, I think was in there. And I started flipping through there. And David, these are the best players that, Texas at that particular moment had. And I'm like, man, I don't remember any of these names. I don't remember any of these names going to college. So sometimes you end up getting the right player. It may not be, from, I don't know, Plano East, but it might be out at, some small 2A school. But man, that dude fits what we do. And we're going to get him here to A&M and we're going to develop him and, see what happens. And sometimes, as we found with A&M, you go out of state and you can find a few players out of state and have success with players from out of state. I just like the fact they stayed within the state because there are plenty of players in the state that end up being the right kind of guys for Mike Elko and the staff.
Johnny, why has it not worked out for Lincoln Riley at USC?
That's a convoluted question. I think I'll ask a question with a question, David. How do you win in college football now? What's the right way to win? So I'll put it this way. So on one side of it, you've got, let's hit the transfer portal like, I was about to use a bad thing, but no, I won't say that. Let's hit the transfer portal as hard as we could possibly hit it. And then there's the other side of it says, that's the Dabo Sweeney side, which is like, no. We take 4-year dudes and we develop them. And we, if you want to transfer, find out, but we're not taking dudes in. We develop them from freshman year through their 3rd or 4th year, and that's how we're going to do it. So where do you see, there's the Deion Sanders transfer portal, and then you got the Dabo Sweeney 4-year recruiting. Like, where do you sit in that? And I think that Lincoln at first tried to do it all the recruiting portal. He gets Caleb, he gets these players coming in all over the place. He gets Eric Gentry coming in. Mason Cobb, he pulls in all these transfers. He gets Bear Alexander from Georgia, pays him a big money, puts him in an apartment in downtown LA, all this kind of stuff. He brings in all these recruits. And I always worry about that in LA. I worry about it in LA, and I know it pretty well now with my daughter there. It's a different place. You can get wrapped up in everything that is out there. And I think what ended up happening was there was this reliance on, Caleb will pull us out. Caleb will pull us out of the fire. I used to think about this with the Colts, with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning covered up a lot of ills with the Indianapolis Colts for years. And then when Peyton stepped away, I was like, whoa, wow. And I think it was kind of the same way. I think Caleb kind of masked some of the issues, especially the first year. So when the first year goes pretty well, you go right back to it the next year. Okay, Caleb will do it again. Well, Caleb can only do so much. The defense went to hell. They lost some players. We obviously got one in Caleb Bullock, and he's played very, very well for us. The defense was a mess for 2 years. So I think what's happening at USC is you have Lincoln Riley, who is, a bit ornery, if that's the right way of saying it. He's a little bit difficult and different to deal with, it sounds like, from afar. And he's tried to do it with all these transfers, and that kind of didn't work. So I think they're kind of in that mode of moving more towards the middle, kind of splitting the middle of, we got to have transfers, but we got the state of California. Let's recruit it. And so I think he's gone back to kind of recruiting. So I think it's going to take him a second. But he's also got a great defensive coordinator, Danton Lynn. I got to know him when he was in the building with the Texans and loved him. He's Anthony Lynn's son. I mean, he's a great, great defensive coordinator. And he'll do some things. But I think now USC needs a little bit of time to get away from that. We've got all our eggs in the transfer basket. I think they've kind of gone back to the middle of like, hey, let's recruit and then supplement with the transfers. It's like, let's draft and let's sign a few free agents. So I think they've kind of gotten back there. But Lincoln's got to – I don't know that Lincoln ultimately fits in LA. Pete Carroll was such the right person because Pete understood the entertainment aspect that went with it. He let his guys be, his guys. He let the media out there. He had Snoop Dogg out at practice. Lendale White used to talk about that all the time. Lincoln Riley won't even let media go out to practice. And it just has this vibe to it that doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like USC. And USC and UCLA are completely different. And then you throw in the fact that USC goes into a conference, in the Big Ten. Well, the Big Ten plays different football than the Pac-12. And Dan Lanning kind of jumped on that right away. And I think Lincoln thought he had that, and then he lost a bunch of transfers. Like, oh boy, it's going to take a second. And also, lastly, they didn't finish games. They had the leading games and couldn't finish them. And to me, that has a little bit to do with coaching. Maybe it's conditioning. Maybe it's just belief in the program. So I think USC will be fine. I just don't ultimately know that Lincoln Riley's the right guy for that particular spot. I'd like to see Bill Belichick get that spot and see what he could do.
Okay. Well, I was about to ask you about A&M USC, but so you like the idea of Bill Belichick in college football?
No, I don't know if like is the right word, David, but I'm not scared by it. And here's why. And I think this reasoning is right. It just kind of reading the tea leaves, but I've thought this for a little while now, that the last couple of years you can really see, as we've talked about, and I've said this probably on this program a number of times, college programs are now going to have to be run like NFL programs with the way the NIL works, where the portal works. And then you've got this landmark, lawsuit where, okay, now the money is going to be coming from the university. Apparently, we don't know all that yet, but we just know there's a lot of money in college football that's going to these players that's being treated a little bit like the NFL. Well, I don't think colleges are all the way there yet and catching up. And one of the great things about Bill Belichick was he can find an inefficiency in the system and exploit it for good or bad or worse, good, bad or worse, whatever. He could exploit it. And I think he looks at college football and goes, oh boy, these programs aren't doing it the right way. I know I can come in there and do it the right way because I will take my NFL Patriot way and I will apply it to college and it'll work. And it'll work for these reasons. And I think he's pretty confident in that. I think college has a lot. What he'll find out is, that offseason that he has from May, June, and July, where he gets to go hang in the Cape, that ain't happening. His phone's going to have to be on 24/7, 365 with recruiting and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's going to be a little different vibe from that perspective. But I think from how you run the program, it's more like an NFL organization now than ever. And he seems to be, pretty cool. And I think what's helped him too is his son, Steve, being in Washington. It's one of the things that I had seen and I read. And I think this is what happens when you're at a particular level for a while, you're at the NFL level and you've run things the NFL way. You don't think that, these college kids are not going to be able to pick up on what I'm vibing. And it's like, that's not the case at all. That's not it at all. Some of the colleges are doing some of the more complex stuff than what they're doing in the NFL. And it's the same way with college to high school. Like you go back to the high school level and you're like, they're not going to be able to run my stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, they can run your stuff and they can run it really well. You got to give them a little bit more benefit of the doubt. And I think Belichick thought his NFL stuff was not going to work in college. Like, they're not going to be able to run my stuff. But then he's seen what younger Belichick has done in Washington. They've had a really good defense with not a whole lot of NFL talent. And they had a really good defense this past year for Washington. So I think there's also that too, setting his son up as a, coach in waiting sort of situation. So look, I'm not buying it 100%, this is the absolute right thing to do, but I don't look at it and go, it's the 100% wrong thing to do. And I think he's had some coaches that have gone out, Bill O'Brien's been one of them that's gone to the college level and had some success. But his guys have not had success in the NFL. But maybe colleges where there are inefficiencies he can exploit. So we talked to Nick Caserio yesterday about it, and Nick was like, yeah, he wants to run it like an NFL program. And I'm like, yeah, exactly, because that's how teams are going to have to run these things going forward. And who's got as many NFL contacts as Bill Belichick? Nobody. So he's going to get players in front of scouts. He's going to get players in front of NFL people. He's going to know what NFL talent looks like. He's going to be able to recruit that. And if he does it right, like an NFL department, he's going to have a whole list of recruiting people that do nothing but recruit.
Right. And
he's going to let his coaches coach. And that's going to be a whole different ballgame. But that's how the NFL does it. And we'll see if that actually works or not. But, I'm curious. If I were North Carolina, there's almost like this curiosity that I want to see if it would work. And if it does, then, man, we're at the ground floor doing something really, really great. If it doesn't, then you sit there and go, all right, what did we lose? We lost a couple of years. We can bounce back, go get a young college coach, and away we go. So it's going to be interesting how the other candidates pitch themselves. Do they pitch themselves against Belichick, or do they pitch themselves as the right person for that job? And that, I think, is going to be interesting who they talk to and how they go about it.
Johnny, let's close out with this. A&M USC. What do you think about that matchup?
Yeah, I think it's a great matchup. I mean, from a name standpoint, it gets you a trip to Vegas. That's kind of nice. Yeah. So, I mean, that'd be good. I've gotten to where I like Vegas, and my wife likes Vegas, which is interesting because I didn't think she would. So I'm a little envious of that for you to go out to Vegas. We went out there a couple of years ago to take on the Raiders, and we got beat. But, man, we had a great time. She drove over from L.A., and we just had a great time in Vegas. So that's going to be fun. You just never know when it comes to bowl games, who's checking out.
Yeah.
Shamar and Nick are already out. Who else is out, for USC, who's out. And it just changes the dynamic of the bowl game. Last year, Caleb was out. We all knew that was happening. And Miller Moss stepped up. It was like, oh, my God, he just destroyed Louisville. And then the season turned sour, and so he left. So it's always kind of weird. But I like the matchup on paper. I just, curious of who's available to play. And I've seen it at Texas Bowl. Like, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, LSU got in the Texas Bowl, and everybody left. They had John Trey Kirkland having to play quarterback because they didn't want to burn Garrett Nussmeier's red shirt at that point. And then they changed the rules, so now you can play, which I think was the smartest thing they did. But I don't know who's going to play. We get Baylor LSU in the Kinder's Texas Bowl. We have no idea who's going to play. A pretty good feeling, but you don't know. And so I think for bowl games, it makes it kind of like, we'll see. But it also makes it fun for guys, like for Ryan Brauninger. Hey, Ryan, tell us about this guy. A&M recruited him. What can you tell us about this guy? He hasn't played all year, but now he's got to play. What can you tell us? And so, the recruiting guys get a chance to kind of like, yeah, well, when I saw him in recruiting, I was able to, find this out about him. And so that's always kind of fun. You can unearth a few guys in the bowl game, like Marcel Reed. I told you after the bowl game last year, I'm like, man, they sure this Marcel Reed character is pretty good. Like, he did some great things in that bowl game. And then you're like, maybe it's a one-off thing. I don't know. But that bowl game, I saw it up close. I called the game, and I was like, man, that dude made plays. He made plays all game long. And I was like, I didn't see A&M quarterbacks do that. So, we'll see. It'll be a fun game against USC. And of course for A&M fans, I'm trying to remember, when has A&M played USC before?
Last time was in 1977.
77. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I was alive, but not since I've been in Texas. So that'd be cool. Then that's the one thing I like about bowl games is you see games that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Just like we haven't seen Indiana Notre Dame in a long time, and now we'll see it in the playoff. And who would have thought that back in July?
Who would have thunk it? Buddy, we should do an hour together. This was great. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, man. Love you, brother. See you.
See you, bro. John Harris there. It's Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with a short segment. Then Tom Schuberth. Right now, let's talk about Chance McClain and Heritage Films. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. They make documentary films about your families. I like to focus on my dad because we did it with my dad. But we all have people in our lives that they got a cool story. We all have a cool story, actually. All of us. You have a cool story, Caitlin. We all have one, right? But being able to tell that story in a 2-hour documentary and just the impact it can have for the future generations, for your children, for what it means to the person that's being spotlighted. I mean, it's just a cool thing to do. 2-hour documentaries that Chance does. He'll come, shoot it, light up the room. He'll edit it. 2 months later, you got yourself a Netflix-style documentary done the right way. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com. 713-893-8341. That's 713-893-8341. And we are back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Caitlin Torn is there. Caitlin, let's get into something.
We have 2 more texts that we haven't gotten to yet. William Gillespie says, portal opening before playoffs start is an advantage to those who didn't make the playoffs, really hurt Washington and Michigan last year.
I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, that's a good point. I just don't know what the right timing is for everybody. There isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's got to be a short window that I for one feel like push it back to May and give 20 days in May or 30 days in May, whatever they feel as of right now. That's how I feel at the current moment. I could be swayed. I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I think one window at the end of the school year. But I also understand when football's over, guys have checked out.
Yeah.
They've checked out. They're not going to go to they're not going to go to the workout. So I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. What else?
And then Roger in Rosehill says, David, will you have a segment one day grading last year portal class and high school recruiting class?
So the 23 class, is that what you're talking about? Or this?
I think so. I'm guessing maybe last year, 23.
Sure. I think we kind of do it. I don't know if we call it a grade like A, B, C, but I do think you can do it. I think 3 years is the good test.
Yeah.
In today's college football, though, like you could have who was it that just went in the Michael Van Buren, the quarterback for Mississippi State? They were bad. They were 2-10. They were horrible. But he looked good for them, and he left. Right, like he just went in the portal, had a nice little ride. Like I don't know if you would be able to. I don't know if you're going to be able to evaluate recruiting classes the way you used to because there's so much movement.
Yeah.
And you can have success. Because you have success, you can leave. Or lack of success, you can leave. Or somebody's just going to offer you a little bit more, you can leave. So I think the whole thing is just screwed, to be honest with you.
Yep. In some more Aggie sports news, the Texas A&M great Adela Kernasek finished tied for 13th to earn her 2025 LPGA Tour card at the final qualifying tournament at the 2024 LPGA Q Series on Tuesday. She's the reigning NCAA individual championship.
Yes, she is.
She shot 11 under 347 to finish inside the top 25 to earn her spot. And that 2025 season begins at the Hilton Grand Vacations Tournament of Champions, January 30th through February 2nd in Orlando.
All right, Caitlin, thank you very much. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Tom Schuberth, talk a little basketball. The coach will be here in studio. A moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. When you're searching for a new vehicle, it can be stressful. They want to make it easy for you. You can go to their website and see the selection that they have. If you have time to make it out to the lot, I think you're going to be blown away by the entire experience because they have the vehicles you're looking for at the right price, and they also have great trade-in value. And the customer service goes from beginning, middle, and end. The whole time, they're going to be a part of you and helping you find the right situation. If you need car service done, they're going to come pick you up, complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers. They also have free oil changes for life on the life of your purchase as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Make the short drive to Caldwell to experience a car buying experience like never before. It's about a 15-minute drive, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and you do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. Let's talk to the coach, Tom Schuberth, here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. At the break, I asked you what you felt about this basketball team, and you're like, I really like them.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I like them a lot.
What do you like about them?
Well, just their grit and their experience and, their confidence level and the ability they can adapt and win games in an unusual way. And that's really what the great teams do. It's hard to write a script that goes perfect every game, but yet they seem to overcome adversity and find a way. In fact, I was thinking about something this morning when UConn won their first national championship 2 years ago. They went through a stretch. They were undefeated going into the new year, so I guess that was 2021. In the 22, they were lost like 6 of 7 games.
Right.
And then they came back and won a national championship. But I see A&M being similar to that. Make adjustments, keep your confidence, keep playing, and hopefully you play well at the end of the year.
So what is working for them this year? Let me rephrase it. What is working better for them this year?
Well, I think the depth, although they had a deep team last year, but 8 seniors is like unheard of in this culture. And they're good 8 seniors. And I'll use an example. Hayden Hefner didn't play in several games this year. Maybe, I shouldn't say several, maybe 1 or 2. But he came in the other night. I don't even know if he scored, but he
impacted the game.
He did, impacted winning. He contributed big time. I looked at his assist-to-turnover ratio, which in his prior years has not been real good. He's the best on the team. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes assists. He lets the game come to him, even when he's not shooting the ball. And if you were to ask the general fan or a scout, what does he do well? He's a shooter, but he didn't even take a shot, and he impacted the game. So I think the players have all understood that we don't care who gets the credit. Let's just win and do what we need to do to win the game.
Well, and they are doing that. It's interesting because they got a great start. Was it 8-2? They look really good. And I look at them, I'm like, they could be undefeated. And then I also look at them, I'm like, some of these games, I don't know. Like, they found a way at the end.
Absolutely. You know what a fine line it is between winning and losing. I'll give you an example, like Texas Tech, which certainly the Aggies outplayed Texas Tech. But Texas Tech was without their leading scorer and leading rebounder. Not saying that would have made a difference.
A&M was without their leading rebounder as well, though.
They were?
Andy Garcia fouled out like 7 minutes in.
Well, that's yeah. And I'm a Garcia fan.
Yeah.
Yes, and that wasn't one of his good games.
It was a terrible game. Yeah.
I know. You always expect him to be Superman, and he didn't play well. But again, the team found a way to win. So that's what makes basketball so unique. And to me, that's what it's evolving to. The best teams or the great teams win consistently, and they do it by committee. I argue with folks all the time that you need a ton of NIL money to be good and win a national championship. I disagree. I think you need some, obviously.
Right.
But you've got to have the right combination and the right players and guys that are there for the right reasons,
In crunch time, they've looked really good. Obviously, when you have Wade Taylor on your team, it's going to solve a lot of problems. What are you seeing from them at the end of games?
Well, they don't have to go to Wade Taylor, which is nice. I'm still waiting for him to break out. I mean, I'm that old school guy, kind of what Bear Bryant used to say, dance with who brought you. I like to go to the guy that's the man. But he hasn't been what I use the term hero yet, which is a good thing.
But he hasn't had to be, right?
Correct. And that's like we've got guys stepping up. Phelps has done a good job. They all have. And Carter was incredible the other night.
Yeah,
played well. And it's great to see him doing it in his hometown as well.
So how much of this could be, and I don't want to call it load management because I don't like load management, first off, and secondly, but how much of it is like, hey, we rely on Wade so much, by the end of SEC play in the NCAA tournament, he is worn down. How much of this maybe is massaging his involvement, not his involvement, because he's going to touch the ball every play, right? But how much of it is we need other people to take some of that burden off of Wade so he is actually at his best at the end of the year?
Well, I don't know if he's wearing down. Again, the coaches know. I do think another thing that happens is people know to beat Texas A&M, you can't let Wade Taylor really have a good ball game. So part of that is the defense taking his touches away, making them work harder, wearing them down, like you said. But I think it helps A&M because of the balance, the 8 guys. I like how Coach Williams shuffles his lineup. You know, one game a guy may get 15, 20 minutes. The next he may get 8 or 9. They don't seem to pout. They pull for one another. And that's a formula of having a really championship-level ball club.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Jace Carter, you mentioned him a moment ago. We're not going to get 16 from him every night, obviously. That's not the player that he is. But when he can get you 8 to 12, right? Like, I mean, that's you got several guys that can do that for you, but just Jace in particular.
And the thing I like about him, he's a really good rebounder, and he's even a better defender. I mean, he embraces defense, which typically you get a leading scorer from a losing team, which he was coming out of UIC. He's worried about points and shots and all that, but he's rebounding and he's playing defense, and of course that's what A&M's built on. So he's perfect for their formula.
Well, you have to play for Buzz Williams, right? You have to, like, that's the. You're going to play, you're going to come here, you're going to be a part of a family, you're going to play defense.
Sure. I love how his culture, he doesn't take certain players already knowing they would struggle in his culture, and that's wonderful. And to me, you may win a year or two with having a loose, poor culture, but consistently you never will. And I think the way Coach Williams and his staff does it, they get high-character guys. Do they have the best players in the country? Absolutely not. Do they blend all the time? No, but consistently they're competitive. And I guarantee you, any team they play fears them because of the solid foundation they have. When you're playing a team that plays real loose, has talented players, sometimes you punch them in the face, they quit, and you can win the game. With A&M, you never know you have the game won, even if you're up big, because they can always come back because of their character.
What about Henry this year? Healthy, he's making a huge difference. I mean, he's always been a solid player, obviously, but his impact is felt, I think, even more this year.
And I think character comes to the line when you talk about him. He is amazing to me because there's been times when he's barely played, but when he gets his opportunities called on, he comes in and gets it done. He's been incredible. He is so good on finishing, and I don't know about you, but his shot doesn't look pretty when he releases it, but it goes in. The play they run a lot, it's where he comes up and sets a ball screen, he has that short roll down the middle of the lane. A lot of teams run it. That's a difficult play to gather the ball, knowing a defender's rotating to take. He never charges. He doesn't turn it over. And 9 out of 10 times he gets it in the basket. I'm amazed that someone hasn't taken that away yet, but that's a credit to his ability and the way he adapts. He doesn't pout. He goes to the boards. He's our leading rebounder, and he doesn't have the most minutes. So I'm a Henry Coleman fan. I have been from the start. When he transferred here from Duke, I thought, oh, this guy's trouble. You know, leaving Duke, coming to A&M. I love him in interviews. I love his attitude on the court, and I watch him around teammates. He's a coach's dream.
How do you think Pharrell Payne's adjusting?
Good. You know, he got off to an incredible start. I remember being on set the first time with you guys during the season, and you were saying what a study was, and he is a good player, but I knew his numbers couldn't keep up like that. You know, I think one of the reasons he had a great start because he was new to the Aggies, and then they were focusing on other players, and that's, again, having a deep team, other players have the ability to shine, and I think he did early. And again, he's been great. When he's come off the bench now, he sparked us and did a good job, and he's so big and strong. It's great to have a guy like that.
Let's talk Purdue on the other side, all right?
Absolutely.
All right, right now we're hitting a break. We're talking Duck Camp. Duck Camp is awesome gear. If you have not tried Duck Camp clothes on, you need to try it on because it fits great. It looks great. It's for all kind of activities. Check it out at duckcamp.com. But if you want to go to the gym and look good, you want to go hunting looking good, you want to go fishing looking good, you look at Duck Camp gear because they want to make you look great, and they are super comfortable, not your run-of-the-mill baggy, boxy fit. These things look really, really good. And they have their sun protection line, they have the technical hunting line, they have the fishing apparel line, they have the Mallard Game Series hats, and those are hats that you see all over town. Billy wears it in the studio all the time. They've been tested in the backcountry of Alaska to the duck fields of Texas. So check it out. Duck Camp is geared for people who live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, and a time to kill, football to watch. Check it out at duckcamp.com. That is duckcamp.com. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Tom Schuberth still hanging out with us for a little bit. Big game coming up, Tom. Big game. Purdue, Saturday, 11 o'clock in Indianapolis. We were talking at the break. They're a pretty good team. They're not the last year's team, but they're a pretty darn good team.
Anytime you lose Zach Edey, you're not going to be the same team. But they were obviously a fabulous team last year. And losing him, but they have a lot of guys back. They have the preseason player of the year in the Big Ten in Braden Smith. 6 foot tall. He only shoots about 43% from the floor, but about 40 from three. But he impacts the game. You know, when you see him, and that's the matchup I'm anxious to see, Wade Taylor against Braden Smith, 2 6-foot point guards. Smith's a little different. Even though he can shoot the three ball and he scores about what Wade's scoring, he's probably better at, when I talk about a point guard, like who, when, and where. He knows who to throw it to, when to throw it to, and where to throw it to, probably as well as anybody in the country. Doesn't turn the ball over, gets everybody involved, kind of the quarterback of the team. So he's really good, but it'll be an interesting matchup. I don't think he's an NBA prospect. And again, I'm not an NBA scout, but, he just impacts winning at the college level. And again, that's what college teams are trying to do, just win college basketball games. They're not worried about, even though John Calipari might argue with you, developing guys for the NBA. You're trying to win, and Braden Smith probably impacts winning as much as any guard in the country.
More on that here in a second. As a reminder, the final segment of the show is brought to you by Double Dave. That's at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been around since 1984 with your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. All right, Tom. So as for this schedule, it felt like once you get through Vegas, you could breathe a little bit, but you really can't because you get Purdue, then you get a little bit of breather, and then you get the SEC that's got, 8 top 25 teams?
I know. Remember we talked last year, and we kind of predicted it. I think both of us were right on. We said we'd go 9-9, 500 in the league, if I'm not mistaken, before the SEC started. I see that happening again. I mean, if you finish 500 in the SEC, you've had a good year because anybody can beat anybody. I mean, the worst team can beat you on your home court. That's how balanced and good it is. So
9-9 this year with that non-conference schedule. Is that still 7, 8, 9 seed level probably?
Well, we talked about that. Yeah, I would say maybe 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, sure. But again, that's a good seed. If you can win that first one, you might catch that 1 seed, whoever it may be, at the right time. It's so interesting how when upsets occur in that NCAA tournament, you can be vaulted into the Final Four. Several years ago when Florida Atlantic made it. Do you remember that?
That was a fun run.
Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. 16 lost to 1, 16 beat 1. Yeah. So, maybe that can happen. But, hey, maybe the Aggies get a 3 or 4. But, once you get to that point, you just got to play well and keep winning. And I don't think you just want to get in the tournament.
A 3 seed would probably require them, obviously, going 12-6 kind of thing in the SEC, right?
I think so, definitely. And again, there's so many good teams. I'm a fan of Kentucky. Alabama, you can't count them out. They've done so well in the last 4 or 5 years. But there's so many great teams. We talked about
Tennessee,
Florida.
Auburn, Florida.
I know Tennessee's number 1 in the country. I was talking to a friend yesterday. I don't see that. I'm not picking Tennessee if I have to pick a team to win it all. But they're undefeated and they're playing well. So you never know.
Yeah, you don't know. And the interesting story is Kentucky. How everybody had given up on them. Coach Cal leaves. There are questions about Arkansas, and Kentucky's over there balling.
Yeah, Kentucky's good, and I like their coach. He's like you, positive. He's got energy.
Am I positive?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
right.
You're the Ted Lasso to me.
Oh my gosh,
I think so. But you have to, you have to report the news, and you have to report. Sometimes, and you're in a position you got to say the facts. You can't always be But
Ted Lasso is so nice, though.
Oh, he's the best. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm definitely not Ted Lasso.
Well,
that's Nick. I got a little bit of a temper. I'm not
good.
Ted.
Well, I realized I just learned about Ted Lasso that was based on a high school coach out of Kansas. I didn't know that.
But it's not true.
It's not true, meaning
the high school coach out of Kansas didn't go to England to be a Premier League coach.
No. But I mean, I think that funny style, his approach to life and the game. No, it's I love it. I mean, that's how you survive in this world now, by having that type of attitude. But and I think what I love about A&M, we talked about why they can be super successful. I don't think they let adversity bother them, and you can't. If you don't have adversity during a season, whether it's football, basketball, I can definitely attest to basketball. Think about the last time a team's gone undefeated.
Sure.
1976, almost 50 years ago. So you need some adversity if you're going to win it all before you have that success.
Tom, thank you very much, buddy.
Thank you, David.
Talk to you soon. All right, we'll hit a break here. We will come back with Recruiting Country and Ryan Brauninger. That and more. It's TexAgs Live. And we're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studios. Now time for Recruiting Country. Ryan Brauninger here. I am David Nuño. Hey, Bronny, you've been busy.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my laptop in here and my phone on, like with the sound. So
that's kind of where
for
we're
dramatic effect, or because you just want to make sure you don't miss
Well,
something?
you want a better radio show and TexAgs live show, don't you?
I do, yeah.
So the more drama, the more intrigue I can bring, the better. So I have my laptop here, but I am working. It's kind of like signing day.
Yeah.
I had a phone call during signing day that I had to step out for.
Yeah, you might get something now.
It's just the nature of the beast this time of year with the portal. Like, for a month straight, I'm on call.
Yeah.
But I have a sweet vacation planned once post-portal, pre-baseball season.
Take a nice little few
going
days
back
off.
to the Virgin Islands.
Look at you, living the high
Love
life.
that place.
So where do we start, Ronnie? Because we can start with Jacob Zeno, but I know you wanted the chit-chat. Look, by the way, I think your coverage has been fantastic. You and
Thank
Jason have done a great job. Billy as well, obviously.
Billy ain't done anything.
I like to give props. And but like what are my methodologies? I do staff only, and I read what you guys have put out there, and it's just been constant updates. It's been really good coverage, and then it starts spreading like wildfires, buddy.
That's one way to say it. Spread like wildfires, and I wasn't even aware of some of the stuff that was getting taken from us and put on social media nearly verbatim by a lot of different folks. It's just unfortunate. How do you curtail it now? I don't know. There's a lot of people that it's crazy to me that people come up with these anonymous Twitter accounts or anonymous social media accounts, and they try to rip news and post news because they want a lot of people to follow them, and I guess they want the internet clout, but there's nothing that's attributed to your name.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, so it could be Caitlin Torn running a anonymous Twitter account because she loves the clout of posting or ripping news from various sources and posting it as her own, but she's not attributed to any of that because her name's not on it. So it's just a bizarre kind of dynamic. But that being said, we are very proud of the coverage that we've put out so far. We will continue to do the best we can. This stuff changes almost every 30 minutes.
It's weird, man.
It's recruiting high school players on a David Nuño steroid cycle.
I would love to try steroids once.
Like a bulking cycle.
Yeah. Where you stay lean though.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of different a lean bulk, a lot of different elements, but this is more like a dirty bulk where everybody's eating Taco Bell and McDonald's. No offense, Steve McKinney. I would say that covering this stuff, it really is though. It's like covering recruiting, but recruiting you get a chance to know the kids for multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
And then the decision-making process is a little bit prolonged. This stuff, it happens like boom, 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 boom. And there's really not a lot of time to think. You can schedule visits with kids, and they go to other places, and they come off the board. And your big board, in terms of your targets and stuff and roster needs, the names to fill those roster needs and the prospects out of the portal, it's almost going to change 1,000 times.
Wow.
Over the course of I'm just making up a number.
Yeah, but
it's going to change a ton over the course of a month because that's about how long that you've got. And I heard y'all talking about, was it January 13th was the last day to enroll? But the more important date is ad drop.
Which is what, 10 days later?
I believe ad drop is Jason looked it up. If you're a premium subscriber, Jason, all that's in Jason's article that he posted yesterday. Just some important dates. And then, because we've set a precedent where there's no rules, these kids that are playing for playoff teams, they have an extended window to go into the portal. I cannot imagine that if a kid wanted to come to Texas A&M or LSU or Arkansas, wherever, after their ad drop date and they were on one of those playoff teams, I can't imagine that the university would disallow that because it's an NCAA rule. And if you disallow somebody from leaving, now you're going to go to court.
Right.
And the precedent is you're going to lose that case if you're the institution or the NCAA. So who knows how long this thing could go? I mean, the typical drop dead date where you're not going to make any more new additions from the portal is that last day to add drop classes. But now it could go further than that.
Wow. It's so hard to keep up with. Let's talk about Jacob Zeno before we start getting into some of the other visits.
Here's why I think getting Jacob Zeno was important. Because what did we say after the Texas game when they were looking at this transfer portal market and going, and you have to obviously take inventory of your current roster, kind of felt like Connor Wigman and Jalen Henderson were going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
That left you with Marcel Reed, Miles O'Neal, who you had to try to keep because you like his upside. He's a young kid. And then it was going to be Brady Hart, who's going to be 16 when he enrolls.
16?
And Eli Morcos.
Holy smokes.
How old are Christian and Cruz?
16.
So, yeah. Can you imagine them walking into a college soccer program right now?
No, much less a football program with grown men.
Right. So, I love Brady Hart.
And Zeno's a 7th-year player, right?
Right.
So talk about the difference in like the topics.
8 years probably, 9 years between.
Yeah.
I don't know how old Zeno is, but he was class of 2019, I think, in high
2019.
school. So when you go into the portal and you're looking at that roster, because it was just Brady Hart and Eli Morcos coming in as young freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
So to give yourself as much insurance as possible and as much cover as possible, you went into the portal with a criteria of what you were looking for. And it was old, experienced, and a guy that, man, if he had ties to the state of Texas and wanted to come back home, it would be great.
Right.
You know, it would be a lot easier for that guy to digest coming back home late in his career, probably not an NFL guy. Who knows? You know, these kids that, Jacob Zeno's probably got good football still left in him, and that's why you got him, because if something happens, you can't just get into a situation where you're left with super inexperienced players against an SEC schedule. So they had some real criteria they were looking for if they were going to add a quarterback, and they went and did it early and got it out of the way.
Move on.
And I think that is because you were going to have to comb through so many quarterbacks to try to fit that bill. To get it done early does give you some kind of weight off your shoulders as you now expand your transfer portal horizons into other positions. To have the quarterback done, just like in a recruiting class, you get the quarterback done, you feel good about, okay, that's the big one. Let's go get the other one.
Let's go get the rest of them.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the visitors this week.
Well,
you want me to go to
our transfer portal tracker? I have it up. It is now nearing, let's see where we're at, 982,000 views in just over 9 days. A lot of folks interacting and kind of trying to keep up with what's going on. So Jacob Zeno obviously comes in, visits, and then commits. The big one that we're monitoring today post-visit is Micah Hudson. Micah was in town for 2 days, start on Monday and Tuesday. There's still some stuff that he has got to finish up academic-wise in Lubbock at Texas Tech. So there's some, like, these kids are still balancing the end of their semesters with also trying to figure out where they're going to go next. It's not an easy timetable for them to manage, especially if they're wanting to get in the portal, find a place, get it done, and has to start getting moved to my new home. A&M did a good job with Micah.
Okay.
And I think A&M came in a leg up on a lot of the competition for Micah because of how comfortable he was coming here as a recruit when he was at Lake Belton. His high school head coach, Brian Cope, is a former longtime coach at A&M Consolidated. He just had a lot of, and he would come to A&M and he'd go to soccer games and basketball games, and they'd take him around, and he's just really comfortable here.
Yep.
And that's something that we knew throughout the entire recruiting processes, which is why I always felt, me and Jason always felt like A&M was in a much better scenario to ultimately get him if he didn't stick with that Texas Tech commit.
Yep.
We felt that A&M was in a better spot than a lot of the folks nationally probably did, just because we knew what level of comfortability he had here, and especially with certain members of the recruiting staff that have remained in College Station from the Jimbo Fisher administration to the Mike Elko administration. So there's some carryover there. There's obviously carryover with the town and just kind of knowing where everything is. And, I think A&M had that leg up because of the familiarity with Micah. And he comes in and he meets with Holman Wiggins extensively. He meets with Mike Elko extensively. And, today you've seen a couple of the national recruiting writers, Steve Wiltfong and Pete Nakos, have just put in predictions for A&M to land Micah Hudson. I don't think it's over the line yet.
Okay.
I think it's getting close. But Micah, I think his intent going into the portal was to take a few visits. Not a bunch, but a few. I know LSU was going to make a hard push to get him. Now with Oklahoma, they're hemorrhaging receivers like crazy.
Yep.
We'll talk about one of their guys they're losing in just a second. I think Oklahoma could try to get on the list. Some folks asked me about Texas with Micah Hudson, and I'm like, I could see it, but what is the purpose for Texas to go do it when they've got all those receivers? You know, Ryan Wingo's playing as a super young kid. They signed 2 5-stars in Khalil Lockett and Jamie French. I think there's less of a window for Micah to get on the field at Texas right now, and that's a credit to the job they've done in signing receivers. Now, could they go in and try to gatekeep? Maybe. If they really like Micah's upside and they don't want him at A&M or they don't want him at a rival, they could try to go gatekeep. That's something that when you have the NIL funds that Texas does right now, you have the potential to play that game. I don't anticipate it currently, but it's something that could happen.
Yeah.
I would give A&M the most clear chance to get Micah right now.
And do you think that'll be decided soon, or?
Well, another thing that's tough with Micah is he does very, very little media.
Yep.
And so much so he's deleted his Twitter and Instagram. So if Micah does commit to A&M and does come here, how are we going to figure it out? It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of goes out publicly. But, you know, the receiver position, and I think that's probably the best way to talk about this portal window is just by position. Like, what do we expect A&M to do? With quarterback being done and running back being a spot where I think they could go get a running back. Like I'm not
DJ Smith kind of guy.
I'm not closing the book. I don't even know that it's that. Like they may go get a best available, but you know Billy has come on here and said they anticipate Le'Veon being back sooner than they thought.
Yep.
Obviously, Ruben now will be a full year removed from that Liz Frank injury that he had. And we saw him in a limited action against Texas. I'm hoping we see more of him in the bowl game. Amari, and then Tiger Ryden and Jamarian Morrow. That's 5 scholarship backs, and those 2 freshmen are really talented, and they're different. They both give you something very, very different. So could they go get a running back? Yes,
they could.
Yeah, but right now I don't think. I know it's not being given the priority that some of the other positions are.
Yeah.
So quarterback done, running back, I'm leaning toward doubtful that they even take one. It's something that if they do, it'll be much later, maybe even go into the April window. Maybe you go through spring ball and go, okay, yeah, Le'Veon's a little bit further behind.
Let's get somebody. Yeah, I get that. And then wide receiver, which we started with Micah Hudson, he's not the only one.
That's where they're going to be very, very active. Mario Craver will be in town tomorrow. He's out of Mississippi State. He's a really good player. I think he had 5 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown against the Aggies back in October when they played in Starkville. Berrien Brown of Kentucky, super fast. Been more of his numbers as a receiver took a little bit of a dip this year, but the metrics on him, like how fast he runs, how fast he gets to top speed, are pretty incredible. It has been an impact returner regardless of what has happened for him on the offensive side. He's been outstanding in special teams. Nick Anderson, originally out of Katy High School, class of 2022. Oklahoma, and was redshirted in 2022. 2023 had a sensational year, freshman All-American. Then last year missed with an injury. So he's only played 1 full season in 3 years. That being said, I mean, A&M doesn't – this kid is going to come in and impact what A&M does if the Aggies get him, like day one. He's a big-time NFL caliber receiver that comes in and almost flips your room immediately. Yeah, so I feel like A&M has got a great foundation there. Obviously, a kid of his caliber, he's hearing from everybody.
Yep.
And so he's going to take in a lot of overtures, and you just call it what it is. There's big-time NIL being thrown around. I mean, I could sit here and talk to you for an hour or longer. I'd go way past time on this NIL stuff in the transfer portal. I don't understand how the term fair market value is being thrown around mostly, I mean, not mostly, from agents.
From agents, yeah.
And I don't think that what it means when it's brought up in conversation does not match the definition of those words put together. Mm-hmm. Fair market value says, okay, I'm going to look at about what David Nuño and other radio hosts make in a similar market, how I've been productive, and I'm going to say, okay, I fit kind of in there, in that area. Not David Nuño got this amount of money, and I think I'm way better than him.
Right.
Regardless of my past performance, this is what I want. That's not fair market value. But the definitions have gotten very construed and twisted in this transfer portal thing. And you knew it would.
Yep.
You knew it would when you started involving agencies, and that's what they do. They get players signed for their most money possible, and that's how they make their cut, right? That's how they make their money. So like a guy like Nick Anderson is going to have to field a bunch of those offers. Kevin Concepcion out of NC State.
That's a big name there.
He's a really good player. That was one that was going to come in this week. There was some finagling done by some rival programs to try to get him in ahead of A&M.
In the Gulf Coast?
Yeah, in the conference.
Uh-huh.
I still believe that A&M will get him on campus. What you worry about, or I still believe that the A&M visit is on his schedule.
But he may have already made up his mind.
But what you worry about is if you're going to get the third or fourth visit from some of these kids, what is A&M doing every time they bring a kid in?
Wow.
Trying to lock it down.
Try to lock it down, yeah.
What they're doing with Micah Hudson.
Closers.
They don't want Micah Hudson going on those other visits.
Yeah, they want to close it now.
Right. So you can bet your bottom dollar when rival programs in the league or across the country bring in transfer portal targets you want, they're going to try to do the same thing.
Yep.
So, again, you may have a guy like Kevin Concepcion at the number one spot on your board. I don't know if they do. Maybe Nick Anderson, maybe Micah Hudson, Barry Brown. He's clearly way up there. But if you have that guy pinned at the top of your board and he commits on one of his early visits, then your board shuffles. And that happens at every position. So, wide receiver is obviously one they're going to be.
Could you see them taking 3 guys?
3 or 4.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 wouldn't shock me. You still got some guys on the roster.
Impact the guys, I guess.
There could be more departures.
Yeah.
You just got to balance the number in the room. And again, we've said it 100 times. What do you think of the guys that redshirted? What do you think of Ashton Bethel-Roman and Isaiah Williams? So if you're really high on those guys, you don't have to be so aggressive just to add numbers and bodies. You want to get your top end targets regardless. And that if they are presented with a scenario where they can get Nick Anderson and Kevin Concepcion and Micah Hudson, and then maybe a Barrion Brown or a Mario Craver, do you tell any of those guys no?
No, absolutely not. Would you compare Micah Hudson to, trying to think, Des Ricks maybe last year? It just didn't get a lot of playing time, but we know the talent.
Yeah, so I was actually talking to Jason about this on the phone. It's like you worry about, or you don't worry. You just kind of, you're intrigued by what happened in Lubbock.
Yeah.
Right? You want to know, okay, what was the reason why you didn't get on the field more? Because you're only a year removed. Micah's only a year removed from being one of the best high school wide receivers I've ever watched. I mean, it was Garrett Wilson type stuff.
Right.
And so you know that raw talent is in there. I know he had a little bit of a knee problem that maybe derailed his development. When you get out to a place where, you're by yourself for the first time.
Yep.
And you have an injury and it kind of sets you behind the 8 ball, what does that do to your mentality? You have to ask Micah. He's a super mature kid. Were you your best self out there?
Right.
Because if he's his best self, he's clearly going to get on the field at a place like Texas Tech all the way to a place like Ohio State. That's the kind of talent that we're talking about. So I don't know that I would directly. I mean, it's a pretty easy comparison to make to Des Ricks because they're both highly regarded guys that didn't play much as freshmen. But every story is different.
Yeah.
And I think that's why A&M has gone so much all in on Micah is because they know what the best version looks like. And if you pull it out of him, he's a real difference maker.
Set a break here. Bird Dog Time, Aggie owned and operated company creating access to hunting opportunities. Bronny's dressed like a hunter. I'm a big-time hunter. I go to the meetings. Bronny knows that. Think about it as an Airbnb for hunters and for the ranchers to get hunters on their land, right? Make more money for your ranch. Everybody's happy. You want to go on great hunts? Let Bird Dog find the great hunt for you and then do a bunch of add-ons. They can add on so many different things. They want to handle all the logistics for you so you can just enjoy fellowship, hanging out, and just doing the great hunting. They can elevate those experiences with live music, helicopter hunting, cooking classes, yoga, different kind of activities. It's great. And they're partnered with 60-plus ranches, and that's growing all the time. Brand new hunters, seasoned hunters, you name it. They will make sure that your hunt is the best. Check it out at birddogit.com. That is birddogit.com. TexAgs.com. All right, we're back here, Recruiting Country on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Ryan Brauninger still in studio, working like Adam Schefter, or just Scheftinger. There we go.
Nice.
That's a Billyism for you. Tell me a little bit about Michael Riley, who's supposed to be making a visit. I don't see a lot of information on him, at least since he's been at Auburn. Tight end prospect who's got I guess he's huge, 6'5", 266 pounds.
Yeah, he's in town. He'll be in town today. Jason actually spoke to him. He should get into College Station around noon.
Okay.
It's a it is a big-bodied kid.
Yeah.
Right? So 6'5", 265 pounds. In 3 years at Auburn, his first year he redshirted, played in 4 games. And in 23, he played in all 13 games. Did they make a bowl last year? I think they went 7-6. Did they not?
Yeah, they did.
So he played in all 13 games last year, then played in all 12 games this year. And only had 3 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown in his career. That should tell you kind of about his utility, right?
He's a blocker.
Right. And A&M, we saw how many sets or how many times the Aggies went to the line of scrimmage this year with multiple tight ends, one in line, one offset. We know how Colin Klein now likes to use that piece on the end of the line of scrimmage to be as versatile as he can in the run game. So, again, not a super high profile in terms of like previous numbers, not going to jump out and grab you, but a roster need.
Yep.
And at a position where with 2 seniors outgoing and kind of in some question marks about the future of Donovan Green after the injury, they were going to go out and add a couple of bodies. And one of the bodies that they needed was a big inline type of guy that could help set the edge, but also be a factor, how often those guys pull in Colin Klein's run game.
Yep.
So you got to be able to factor in on the edge to create some advantages in the run game and also be athletic enough to move around. So they obviously believe in this kid. He's from Omaha, Nebraska. So Colin Klein and his group of offensive guys that came from Kansas State to College Station, they had some familiarity with him being from that area of the country. His offer list out of high school was fantastic. Michigan, Oregon, Ole Miss, obviously Auburn, like some really impressive schools on his offer list coming out of high school. But this would be if they go out and grab him, this would be a roster need type of get.
Yep.
Again, not flashy, not going to catch anybody's eye with the numbers, but something that they feel like they need to operate their offense as efficient as possible.
Let's talk cornerback. I think one of the names I saw on the list.
Well, we got to go to we haven't done offensive line.
Offensive line, yeah, that's right. Let's go offensive line.
I'm in the process right now of updating our transfer portal tracker and adding a visit from Isaiah World, who is a massive offensive tackle that played at Nevada last year.
Okay.
Didn't allow a sack. I think he's 6'8", 340 or 6'9".
Holy
He's
smokes.
a big dude, but he's got really good tape. The Aggies are expecting him on Friday and Saturday of this week. There's a little information that I just put on the board, and I'll say it publicly. I think offensive line, especially if like Zune leaves, you're going to need somebody.
Yep.
They had departures from Hunter Erb, Cam Dewberry, and TJ Shanahan. But even still, if you look at where they're at, and those are all 3 interior type players, if you get Armaj Reed Adams back, if you get Trey Zune back, you're going to get your starting 5 back. Or essentially, Reuben Fothery was in and out, and Demetrius Crownover, but neither one of them have signaled any intention to leave at this moment. But you could be in a really good spot where you're going to return 8 or 9 guys off of last year's roster that you feel really good about.
Yeah.
And that's me even forgetting about Mark Naboo. And Coley can come back at center. So you feel good about where that room's at, especially knowing kind of how Mike Elko and Adam Cushing are so bullish on that group of red shirts that came in last year. So guys like Ashton Funk and Papa Afua and Blake Ivy, Robbie Bourdon, we've just gotten so many good reports that I think they're fine with where that group is. So offensive line, you could go see them take 1 tackle prospect if they feel like
it upgrades the room.
Upgrades the room, or maybe Zune is on his way to the NFL, or maybe Armaj is on his way to the NFL.
Right. All right, so then we transition to the defensive side, the cornerback room, and as I mentioned, there's a couple names that I remember tied to A&M at one point that would be making a visit here over the next week. That's a position they feel comfortable with, though, right?
Yeah, again, like you haven't had too much attrition in the portal yet. The portal's going to go on for a while. But they're bringing in a couple. Jalen Braxton, who's from Frisco Lone Star originally, played at Arkansas this year, and then Julian Humphrey, who's originally out of Clear Lake, it was a name in recruiting that A&M, they recruited but never really pulled the trigger on.
Yep.
Then he goes to Georgia and plays a little bit, gets in the portal last year. Kirby convinces him to stay in Athens. Now he's back in the portal again. I just think that you're going to want to do some homework, like they are on all these kids, to figure out what the deal is. Why does he keep wanting to leave Athens? You're going to want to do as much homework on that as possible. So, corner's a position that if it's the right guy, they'll take. But again, I think they feel good about what they've got on campus. And I mean, Mike Elko sat in the studio and talked to us, and then he talked to the gathered media after signing today about what he thinks of this group they just signed out of high school. And Adonis Curry and Jamar Bill Goins and Dejon Pettaway, Tom Johnson. Like, it's a really talented defensive back group that's headed to Aggie land, and they can all really run. And I think at corner, being able to run early is certainly a factor that can help you get on the field quicker. Just the raw speed, and all those kids are really elite runners.
Safety?
I haven't heard much in terms of safety. At least getting like guys to campus. And you haven't seen like offers go out. The one that on the defensive side is the defensive line. And we knew that they were going to now Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton are officially
in the draft,
declaring for the draft. Shamar Turner
probably will.
Well, yeah, I don't think he can come back, can he?
Yeah, because the COVID year doesn't matter anymore.
Right. He's a 21. He's a class of 21.
So he's done.
So that's a position where you've seen offers go out from to D2 kids to obviously pursuit of high-end players. There's been a couple that have gone in from Florida that were recruited by Sean Spencer in Gainesville. I think the Aggies, if they decide they want to go that direction, will have a great opportunity to get those kids. Kelby Collins, really talented player. I talked to the guy that covers Florida who was like, Kelby Collins will play in the NFL, and he'll play a long time.
Well,
he's a really good player. Now, Alabama's going to be a real thorn in A&M's side. He's from Alabama, and I think the Crimson Tide might have an angle there for him to go back to his home state, but he's visiting A&M this week. Jack Pyburn's another kid that played a ton for Florida this year at that defensive end edge position that I think the Aggies are going to have a good shot with. You look at James Williams, Nebraska, Will Helt, Purdue.
There's a couple of names from Nebraska, right?
Yeah, James Thompson is Wisconsin. James Williams is Nebraska.
Butler.
Jamari Butler's on campus right now from Nebraska. Prince Will Uman-Mielen's from Manor. He's from Nebraska. All of those guys, it's going to be interesting to see how that position kind of unravels itself. And it'll be interesting to see if they get a guy like Will Helt on campus from Purdue. Another guy we didn't even talk about at tight end is Max Clare from Purdue. His tape is sensational. I think A&M's going to get him on campus, but as of right now, I've got nothing to report of any dates being finalized. Will be one of the premier tight ends, pass-catching tight ends in the portal, and that would be a sensational ad.
That'd be a grab, yeah.
So where all these defensive line names go, Nico DeVilliers from Arkansas is another one that will visit A&M or is supposed to visit A&M. I don't know how all that's going to shake out, but the Aggies are certainly casting a broad net across the defensive line right now.
Okay. All right, we'll hit a break here. Bronny, thank you very much. I know you got a lot to do. Thank you for coming in. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back with Pounding the Rock, Luke and Tap. All right, so let's just say you're on vacation and your neighbor calls to tell you that a major storm just slammed into your neighborhood. Damage is significant. What exactly is going to happen next? Well, don't gamble on your future, your state, or your business. Details matter. Preparation matters. Consultation and education matter. Go to RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs and start a conversation with your personal insurance agent today. If you got questions, they've got answers. They take care of my family. They take care of many folks that work here at TexAgs. And they're in this community. Their headquarters is on Highway 6, but they got 60 offices all around the great state of Texas. They will take amazing care of you, no matter if it's car insurance, homeowners insurance, you name it, they've got you. 888-44-ROLLO or go to RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs. That's 888-44-ROLLO, RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs. The return of Pounding the Rock, Tap Bentz, is in the house. Tap, how you been, buddy?
Doing well. Appreciate it. Thanks for the ask again.
Yeah, man. I love having you on. And Luke Evangelist. Just kidding. Yeah. And Luke Evangelist.
I'm this
is the first time.
Right.
Right. You've replaced Logan Lee, a legend. Hop. And now you.
Right.
So,
great pedigree. We just continue to go downhill, right?
Is that a shot at yourself?
No,
Okay.
no, but we're trying to get back up. I just mean Logan Lee he's Logan Lee. He's an A&M basketball legend.
He is a legend. So let's talk about how we feel about things. Tap, I'm going to start off with you because if you would have told me 8-2 to start off the season with that start of that schedule, I'd be ecstatic. I'm still ecstatic. The thing that bugs me is I don't know why it's a me thing. It's a David thing. I look at the losses like, God, we had those games. So I'll let you take it from there.
Again, with the schedule we have, you got to just assume and that there's going to be a couple of losses. I think that first game put a bad taste in everyone's mouth, on both programs, the women and the men, that first game. And I think they're just bouncing back. But, I also think this is a team that's just never going to come out and win by 40. I mean, every game's going to be a grind. And I think we just want to have that. We see some of these other teams that are in the top, 20 in the country scoring points. And that's just not what we do. We do it on the other side of the ball.
Luke, we've heightened your profile recently. I say we. TexAgs has given you a lot of opportunities. You've gotten to interview former players. You got your pick six, your prize pick segment. You're doing a lot more stuff with the basketball coverage. And talking to former players, what have you learned about this year's team? What's kind of the intel you're getting?
I think there's a lot of similarities when I interview these former players to the teams that they were on, mainly Dominique Kirk, AK, these teams from like the late 2010s, late 2000s, early 2010s that were making deep tournament runs. They see a lot of similarities between AC Law and Wade Taylor. And also with the front court play, a lot of similarities to guys like Joseph Jones, AK. Very prolific scorers and rebounders. Right. Hey,
you know why I'm laughing, right?
Why?
Because I said that Wade's freshman year, and Henry when he transferred from Duke, and Logan laughed at me, and people laughed at me because I get it. Like they hadn't done anything, but like they're set up the same exact way. Like you've got that; those are your two cornerstone pieces.
Now you look at it. Wade has already passed AC Law and Joseph Jones for third and fourth place in the all-time scoring list. And Henry is set to pass Joseph Jones for the all-time leading rebounder. So you weren't too far off. I have to give you credit. That was good ball knowledge. But you made those predictions when they were coming in, and now 3 and 4 years later, they're reaching those
Shocking
goals.
that a guy that's now the head coach was an assistant coach helped put that team together, those teams together.
Well, and here's the difference. Like those guys, the ACs and the Joseph Jones, that crew, Marlon Pompeo, that whole gang, they got a step further. We need this group to at least, I say at least, I know how hard it is to win the NCAA tournament, but we need a little bit more postseason success to be in that same breath. Am I right, Tab?
Yeah, no doubt. And, I think if people go back to, Logan's team, and say there was disappointment there again, San Antonio, and it's set up.
I was there.
But it does get difficult. And to me, I think the athleticism of around the country has just risen since those years. But you just got to rise with it. But this team has got to prove it. And I think they have the ability, but I think they have the depth and the score. They do have shooters and scorers this year that they haven't always had.
Yeah. Luke, when you look at this team, where are areas that you think they are, if not elite, really good? And where are some areas like, I still worry about this?
I think it's what we've been talking about for multiple years. The rebounding, it's getting to the same level it was last year. They didn't really explode until conference play. But you're starting to see them put the pieces together. Even without Andy playing against Texas Tech, they still had 19 offensive rebounds. And so they only won the offensive rebounding battle by 2, but you're still seeing signs that this is still an elite offensive rebounding team. And then, of course, the three-point shooting. When you look at someone like Solomon Washington hitting 2 threes, you're like, okay, maybe the three-point shooting has actually increased, but there's still lapses every game. It's very inconsistent from game to game. Wade is starting to figure it out. He's had a couple performances where he's had 4 threes, and he did that over a dozen times last year. And so they're starting to figure it out, but it's still not a strength yet for this team.
Yeah, well, and I think those lapses, Tap, to me is they just got to go back to what works, and that's attacking the rim. I think when they fall in love, and this happens to every basketball team, you fall in love with the outside shot. When you're trying to play catch-up, you fall in love with it, even if they aren't falling. What I liked at the end of the last game was that Wade was attacking the rim when they needed him to attack the rim as opposed to settling for outside shots.
Well, I think Wade early on was really trying to get some of the other guys involved and figure them out. You know, Zurich, we found out early on, he's going to attack the rim.
Right.
I'm not sure he was going to do anything else. And, you know, then all of a sudden you have, you know, Pharrell in the middle that we really didn't have somebody just standing there last year. And so, again, it takes a while, even though you have the majority of your team back, when you put in 1 or 2 pieces or 3, you know, how are they going to fit in? And it's not so much the coaches, they have that idea, but how do I play and what's your strength and my weakness?
Hey, Luke, you sent me this info. Defense over the last 3 games, the best has been top 15 defensive efficiency in the country.
Yeah.
And to me, a lot of that is the effort that both teams play with, but it's also like they kind of know where the other guys are going to be at all times.
Yeah, I think when you go back to the Rutgers game, I know there was a lot of focus on the Texas football game, which was a couple hours later, but what A&M did against Rutgers was probably, outside of Ohio State, their best defensive performance to date that season. They held a top 25 Buckeye offense to like 10, 15 points lower than their season average. And then they go and do the same to Rutgers, holding 2 potential future top 3 picks in the NBA draft to a lot less than what their production was. Like Harper was averaging 35.5 points per game in Vegas. A&M held him to 18. A lot of that is credit to Solomon Washington and Zurich Phelps. And then once you go from Vegas to then Wake Forest, it's kind of hard to get up for a game like that when you're playing, no offense to Wake Forest, a team that's a lot less in competition. They still hold them to 44 points. And then you've got Texas Tech, a top 15 offense, averaging 87 a game. A&M holds them to 67. A lot of it has to do with the personnel, but the defensive effort, like you said, the closeouts, the rotations, they've been the best I think we've seen all season in the last 3 games.
And I go back to the same thing I said offensively. Buzz's team is a true team defense. I mean, they push people to areas that they know that they're going to get help. And again, if you're not accustomed to playing something like that, until you get in that game situation, it takes a while for everybody to be on the same page.
Great point. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with another segment right now. Milliken Reserve, farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got farms, they got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community. They've dedicated to a conservation of a healthy community, 2,600 acres of open space and farms and trails. They have an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that includes walking and equestrian paths. It is a place that you can find all the animals that you love to see. White-tailed deer, they got songbirds, they got rabbits, they got turtles. And homeowners at Milliken Reserve sharing a legacy of conservation, which means generation after generation, you're coming back to that pristine countryside place. You can learn more at millikenreserve.com. That is millikenreserve.com. And we're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Quickly about the Association of Former Students. If your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, you need to check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during marquee events held throughout the year. We're talking about awesome events like Aggie Rain Day, All Aggie Hullabaloo, and Gathering. They all welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities available to get your brand in front of those attendees. They offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand to get in front of all of their people. These options include title sponsorship naming, on-site presence, activation, and recognition in social media posts. There's also advertising opportunities in the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by 230,000 people over that. If your business is ready to engage with Aggies, choose a partner that's been with the organization serving the Aggie network for over 140 years. For more information on options available throughout the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. It is the Association of Former Students. All right, gentlemen, back to Pounding the Rock with Tap and Luke. Let's talk about the significance, Luke, of that Texas Tech win when it from a quad 1, quad 2 perspective and what it can mean down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quad 1 win to start off. You always want to start stacking those. But I think the best part about it is that it's got the potential to be even better. When you looked at their resume last year, they lost like 4 of their biggest 5 non-conference games. The only win was Iowa State. And when you beat them, it was a great win. Iowa State is a great team, but Iowa State took off down the stretch of the year. They ended up being a 2 seed. That great win ended up being a signature win. And so for A&M, they've got a nice little basket of great wins that can turn into really high-quality wins. When you look at Ohio State, Creighton, Rutgers, and now Texas Tech, these are all teams that are at the top half of their conference, that if they put together a really great conference season, that great win is now an elite win and a win that can move you up a couple seed lines like that Iowa State win did. If A&M didn't have that Iowa State win, I would say they're probably not getting in the tournament last year, or since that bubble was shrinking, they're likely having to play in a play-in game. So that was a big one.
Well, you know, I go back to thinking that when you go into conference, it seems like the last 2 years especially, there was so much pressure on that team to have to win. I mean, again, not that we don't want them to win, not that they're not going to play to win, but, you know, remember that one when they lost the 8 in a row and then they had to win. And I think that mentally wore them out at times, you know, and they didn't have enough to get into the postseason. I think, as you said, having that basket already full or filled, and then again, hopefully get a big win Saturday. And then you go into, what was it, 10 teams in the top 25 from the SEC right now? You know, that's phenomenal. So you go in and let's say you go 500, you're still going to end up with a pretty good seed coming out of the conference.
Yeah. Let's talk about the SEC in general, because obviously this is not going to happen because they're going to beat each other. But 12 teams as of right now, Luke, you say would be in the tournament?
And honestly, 12 is like conservative because there's teams like LSU, Missouri, even like South Carolina, who are like at the bottom half, even Vanderbilt, like the bottom half of the conference. Those teams combined have like 4 losses, and they're all on the tournament bubble.
Right.
Everyone else is like completely clear of the bubble. So this is by far the best non-conference stretch in the history, I think, of college basketball for a single conference. They're 128-19 as a conference, and A&M has 2 of those 19 losses. So across your 16 teams, you're averaging 1 loss per team. Everybody is at an elite level. Teams like Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn have taken a similar path to A&M of scheduling really tough non-conference schedules, and they're winning 90% of their games. So like you said, A&M really just has to shoot for 500 in conference play, and you're going to get in. Anyone that has more than 12 or 13 wins from the SEC in conference play is going to be an elite team in a 1 or 2 seed.
You know, probably if, you know, Mike's Live, how many years ago did he say we need to focus on basketball too?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people smiling that now, hey, football's a revenue producer. Now men's basketball, for everyone's probably a revenue producer.
Well, Tap, we looked at what those wins could mean later. What about those losses? I haven't paid attention to what has happened to Central Florida since that game, but what do those losses maybe look like Oregon too later on?
You know, I still feel like, well, Oregon, you know, is having a pretty good season.
Oregon's going to be a great loss.
Yeah, a great loss. And, you know, Central Florida is always going to be there. But I think almost every team in the country has that loss. And if it's the very first game of the season on a true road game, I think that may get kind of washed away if you continue to have a season like you are.
Well, this stretch here with Purdue, guys, we have about a minute left. Toughest game to date.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a game where you've already gotten experience playing good teams, great teams in the Big Ten, but now you're about to play an elite team from the Big Ten. Purdue already has wins over Alabama and Ole Miss, so they've got experience playing against big physical SEC teams like A&M. But A&M, I think, brings a different intensity on the defensive end that maybe Purdue hasn't seen. They've got a lot of great scores, a lot of players who have been playing college basketball a long time, just like A&M. So I think if A&M's able to pull this out, their resume goes from really good to elite. And they've got a chance to do that.
I mean, I can't say anything else after that, but I don't think anybody in the country, the first time you're going to play A&M, can recognize what that defensive intensity can be.
100%. Gentlemen, thank you very much. First of many this year. Pounding the rock, Tap and Luke. All right, we'll hit a break because the show's over. So, there you go. Louie's next. On tomorrow on the program, Logan Lee will be here, the Fan Show guys. And I believe Billy Lucci will join us for a bit. So we'll have all that. And, of course, your text messages and your phone calls. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll catch up with you mañana.